Chapter 689. Booth 126. I've tried my best. I've sold a lot of stock at a low price in the past 3 days. Unfortunately, I'm still short of 100,000 psionic points. Fang Qinghua sighed. In front of him, Fang Zi, Lin Haoyang, and the others were all depressed. Fang Qinghua's team member, Ling Jin, couldn't help but say, if young Master Lin and Miss Fang are willing to take all the psionic points from the family fund and combine them with our savings, we can get the Bauhinia flag for sure. Lin Haoyang shook his head and didn't say anything. Fang Zi said faintly, sorry, Haoyang and I can't put all our eggs in one basket without corresponding benefits. How is this not corresponding benefits? Getting the Bauhinia flag is something that benefits all of us. Ling Jin said. The Bauhinia flag can only hold 3 permanent members. After the team is established, will you quit? Or will he quit? Fang Zi pointed at another awakened next to her, her tone a bit aggressive. Ling Jin showed a dejected expression. Fang Qinghua waved his hand and said, you can't blame Zi and Haoyang for this. If you want to blame someone, blame it on my lack of ability. It's been 2 years since I graduated, and I can't even save up a permanent team creation item. Ling Jin lowered his head and sighed. The money we've spent on temporary team creation items in the past 2 years is more than 100,000 psionic points. Fang Qinghua knew very well that even if his current 2 teammates, Ling Jin and Wei Haoren, quit and promised Lin Haoyang and Fang Zi that they would be the first permanent members, the 2 might not be willing to help him get the Bauhinia flag. It's like a newly established company. Lin Haoyang and Fang Zi invested a lot of psionic points as capital. How could they be willing to be subordinate team members? It must be known that the team's public storage space was bound to the captain. The ideal model was for Fang Qinghua to get the team creation item and then bring Lin Haoyang and Fang Zi into the team. He would have absolute authority over everything in the team. Do you think Ouyang Heng is crazy? Fang Zi shifted the target of her hatred. She frowned slightly and said, at that time, my cousin could have sold the talisman item to buy Xiaowen, but he interfered and couldn't pay for it. Not only did he cause my cousin to lose a business deal, he also offended Bai Xiaowen for no reason. Seeing that the atmosphere had calmed down, Ling Jin added, that's right. Just from that dark gold equipment, we can tell that Bai Xiaowen is very powerful. If we don't offend him, we might even be able to borrow some psionic points from him. Fang Qinghua sighed. The reason why I invited him to dinner, apart from wanting to sell him the Vigor Zombie talisman, was because I wanted to borrow it. Unfortunately, he seemed to be a little angry and directly declined the meal. Ouyang Heng is very sinister. Did he already know that he and cousin are competitors? Fang Zi snorted. That's why he deliberately messed with cousin's business. Everyone in the room fell into deep thought. Lin Haoyang said, with my understanding of him, I don't think so. He just wanted to annoy Bai Xiaowen. In any case, you should avoid Ouyang Heng in the future, Fang Zi said. He often drags you to the bar. Don't think that I don't know about it. Although Lin Haoyang was stronger than Fang Zi, he still looked weak in front of her. He didn't dare to object. Sigh, I used to think that Ouyang Heng was a good person, but now it seems that he is not worthy of a deep friendship, Fang Zi said. She then cheered up again. Since we didn't get the permanent team building item, let's look for a temporary team building item. I remember that there are temporary team building items in this exchange meeting. Ling Jin looked at the inventory list and showed a strange expression. Yes, there is. Among them, only this Hittite assembly order is in line with our level. Bai Xiaowen's inventory? Another hunter, Wei Haoren, smiled bitterly. We really can't get around it. He didn't sell it in the past 3 days, right? Fang Zi asked. Fang Qinghua smiled and said, the information on the inventory list is updated immediately. The items that have been sold will not appear on the inventory list again. He looked at the record and said, well, that was close. He originally had 2 items, but he has already sold 1. Wei Haoren said, Captain, we have offended Bai Xiaowen. It's not good to go to him again. Fang Qinghua shook her head. That's why we have to go to him. We have no conflict with Bai Xiaowen. We can't stand against Bai Xiaowen because of Ouyang Heng. Lin Haoyang and Fang Zi looked at each other. They could see that the balance in Fang Qinghua's heart was already leaning towards Bai Xiaowen. If it weren't for Ouyang Heng's strong background, it was hard to say if Fang Qinghua would be able to maintain a neutral attitude between the two. On the other side, Ouyang Heng was also throwing a tantrum. Not only did he take out the family's funds to build the team, but he also squeezed out all the money from his little brother, Wu Chaojie. The new member, Qi Ruifeng, also sponsored a sum of money out of friendship. However, after pooling so much money, they lost the first battle that they were determined to win. The team's future was not optimistic. That hateful American woman dares to steal from me in my territory. Ouyang Heng cracked his knuckles. Calm down. It's because we are in Huaxia that you can't use underhanded means to deal with her. The atmosphere is very strict now. It's not a trivial matter if an awakened is caught fighting in Huaxia. Qi Ruifeng advised. Ouyang Heng was just saying. He couldn't deal with Camille in private. His family wouldn't support his actions. The government attached great importance to the image of Huaxia. If a foreigner who bought a treasure with a large sum of money was attacked in Huaxia, who would dare to come to Huaxia to participate in trade fairs in the future? Moreover, Camille was a member of the Rockefeller family. The American government's power was weak, and the development of big families was limited. The Rockefeller family's influence in the United States was greater than the Ouyang families in Huaxia. They couldn't be underestimated. Don't let me meet her in the spirit world. Ouyang Heng could only hatefully say this. As soon as the White Phoenix team walked out of the stadium, they ran into Camille and Monica. The American woman came up and gave them a warm hug. Her mouth stretched out and was about to kiss Bai Xiaowen's face. A slender hand stretched out from the side. With a smack, Camille's lips kissed the white palm. Qiao Rui expressionlessly pushed Camille's face away. Please respect yourself. This is Huaxia's land. My team leader can sue you for sexual harassment. Camille blinked. Don't be so serious, Qiao. I'm just expressing my heartfelt gratitude to Captain Bai. I believe Captain Bai won't think that I'm harassing him. Bai Xiaowen coughed. He could still feel the warmth and softness of Camille's two indescribable objects on his chest. However, Li Shi's gaze quickly evoked his desire to live. There's no need to thank me. Lending money is also a kind of transaction. You just have to return the points on time. Also, remember the confidentiality agreement. I don't want anyone to see our relationship. Bai Xiaowen didn't want the whole city to know that he lent money to Camille. This would further offend Ouyang Heng. Even the other competitors of the Bauhinia army might have a bad impression of the White Phoenix team. Although Bai Xiaowen wasn't afraid of Ouyang Heng, it was better to avoid trouble. Bai Xiaowen didn't want to do things that didn't benefit him and would only offend others. Alright, we'll meet again soon, handsome and charming Captain Bai. Camille wasn't stupid. She could tell something was wrong from the confidentiality agreement Bai Xiaowen signed with her. She took a few steps back to keep a distance from Bai Xiaowen. Then, she beckoned Luaka to leave. Before she left, she winked at Bai Xiaowen and released a wave of electricity. Qiao Rui frowned and said, "This woman is too casual. Maybe it's just Western etiquette." Bai Xiaowen played dumb. "I've never seen her treat others with such etiquette," Li Shi muttered. Qiao Rui said, "Shi, you have to control your Xiaowen. Otherwise, he'll become a womanizer sooner or later. When that happens, he'll get a bunch of mistresses for you. Our team will be in chaos." Yes, 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 Li Shi put one hand on his waist and pretended to be fierce. "Ha, you were flirting with a foreign beauty just now. Do you think I don't exist?" "I'm innocent." The three of them laughed for a while. Suddenly, Bai Xiaowen's phone rang. He raised his hand and saw that it was Fang Qinghua's number. After answering the call, Bai Xiaowen grunted a few times and hung up the phone. He said with a strange expression, "Fang Qinghua wants to make a deal with me." He wants to exchange the Strength Zombie Talisman for our temporary team-building tool, the Hittite Assembly Order. Don't we already have several summoning tools? Don't worry about him anymore. Li Shi was still brooding. Bai Xiaowen shook his head and said, there's no need to keep him hanging now. He'll definitely blame Ouyang Heng for his failure in the competition for the Bauhinia army flag. The Hittite Assembly Order is useless to us. It's better to use it in exchange for actual benefits. The Strength Zombie Talisman is actually very good. Well, let's trade then, Li Shi said. According to the agreed location, Bai Xiaowen and Fang Qinghua met again to complete the deal. Fang Qinghua obviously wanted to mend the relationship between the two sides, and her words were quite warm. Bai Xiaowen naturally wouldn't pretend to be cold and aloof. The two sides could be said to hit it off immediately, leaving each other with long-term contact information, and deepening their friendship and cooperation in the future. Of course, this relationship was not considered a friendship. They just felt that the other party was valuable. After saying goodbye, Bai Xiaowen went to Qiao Rui's house again. Last time, because Qiao Rui and the rest of the Qiao family were there, the two sides did not have time to talk in depth. Now, they finally had a chance to get to know each other better. Bai Xiaowen learned that Qiao Rui's father was the chairman of a large state-owned enterprise and was considered a big boss in the business world. Qiao Rui's mother ran a personal business and was also very rich. Bai Xiaowen finally understood why Qiao Rui's pseudonym, Proud Princess, was so generous. It turned out that tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of yuan were not even pocket money for her. Of course, after becoming an awakened, Earth's currency no longer had much meaning. Qiao Rui's father was particularly concerned about the relationship between Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi. After understanding it through indirect means, the worry between his eyebrows became even more intense. However, Qiao Rui joining the White Phoenix squad and having such an excellent captain to protect them was still something to be happy about. Bai Xiaowen was very magnanimous and took the initiative to say that Qiao Rui had handed over the psionic points to the team. Qiao Rui's father and mother looked at each other, their expressions a little strange. Bai Xiaowen thought that they had something to say, but unexpectedly, Qiao Rui's father and mother said that they already knew about this matter. Needless to say, it had to be Ouyang Heng who had told them the secret. Bai Xiaowen frowned, and his dislike of Ouyang Heng deepened. In turn, Qiao Rui's father comforted Bai Xiaowen and made it clear that he did not care who was in charge of Qiao Rui's team fund. Qiao Rui was already an adult and had his own judgment. He and Qiao Rui's mother would not interfere. However, in the end, Qiao Rui's father still pulled Bai Xiaowen aside and quietly told him to treat Qiao Rui better. The main point was to keep an eye out for a reliable boyfriend for her. Bai Xiaowen knew very well that Qiao Rui's father still did not want Qiao Rui to be with him. After all, Li Shi was there. No parent in the world would want their daughter to share a husband with another woman. Even if the concept of the psionic era had changed, it was still the same principle, especially when the Qiao family was so prominent. After saying goodbye, the three members of the White Phoenix squad, including Qiao Rui, stepped onto the teleportation array and left the capital. Jinghai Base City. As they walked out of the teleportation array, the three of them took in a breath of fresh air. The air in Jinghai is more humid than in the capital, after all. Qiao Rui exhaled softly and looked a little perplexed. Sister Qiao, where are you staying in Jinghai this time? Li Shi asked. We can't stay in a hotel, right? That's not a long-term solution. I'm staying with you guys. Do you welcome me? Qiao Rui joked. Well... Li Shi hesitated for a moment. She seemed to have thought of something and her little face suddenly turned red. All right, I'm just joking. Qiao Rui became serious. You guys are staying in the Taoran residence of Jinghai University, right? I'm not a student of Jinghai University. It's inconvenient for me to stay there. I'll just stay at Xiaowen's house. Your house. Although Xiao Jun and her personal assistant are staying at home, there are still empty rooms. You can stay there, Li Shi said. Of course it's good to stay at home. I'm just worried that Sister Qiao won't be used to it, Bai Xiaowen said. What's there to not be used to? I've wanted to see Xiaojun for a long time. I want to see if she's as pretty as Xiaowen, Qiao Rui said with a smile. That doesn't sound quite right. Bai Xiaowen complained. Then, she took the car from the parking lot near the teleportation array and drove Qiao Rui and Li Shi back to the Qihua district. Her personal assistant, He Jiqing, had called in advance. She knew that there would be guests today, so she made a few extra dishes. It was summer vacation, so Xiaojun was at home too. At noon, the family sat around the table and ate together happily. To Bai Xiaowen's surprise, Qiao Rui quickly became familiar with Xiaojun. The little girl was obedient to her and affectionately called her sister Qiao Rui. Because of Wu Xiaoyan's incident, Xiaojun was very guarded against outsiders. Even Sister Zheng took a long time to make Xiaojun accept her. Chapter 690. For Li Shi's hero trial, the preparation of the most important items was almost complete. Next, according to Bai Xiaowen's plan, she needed to work hard to practice her long-range shooting specialty. The hero trial was Li Shi's battle alone. Without Bai Xiaowen to check and fill in the gaps, she had to become more comprehensive. The summer vacation was about to end. September was an important month for teams to apply for the League 2 qualification. The first match of the league would begin in October. Bai Xiaowen thought of Han Su, whom he had not contacted for a long time. It was time to contact him and do some team training. As usual, Bai Xiaowen checked the Lord's interface of the White Stone Hills fief order and prepared to transfer the day's supplies to the super gods for safekeeping. Saber Dazhong shop had helped Bai Xiaowen earn more than 500,000 yuan in turnover in a season. Although a certain amount of transfer fees had to be deducted, the profit was still amazing. This stable source of income could not be slacked. When Bai Xiaowen opened the warehouse interface, his eyes suddenly focused. In the warehouse, the usual rye bread, snacks, and standard equipment were all gone. There were only piles of old ironware. Bai Xiaowen examined them. These old ironware were all damaged weapons, broken arrows, and so on. Some of them were even stained with blood and had no value. Something happened in the White Stone Hill. Bai Xiaowen took a breath and said in a deep voice. Ah! Qiao Rui, Li Shi, Xiaojun, and the others who were chatting in low voices all looked up in surprise. According to the secret signal, I agreed with Cecilia. If there is an abnormality in the warehouse transfer of supplies, it means that there is a problem in the White Stone Hill that she can't solve. Bai Xiaowen's expression was somewhat solemn. I have to rush over. I'll go with you. Li Shi stood up and said, if Cecilia can't solve the problem, it must be very troublesome. After all, I can help a little. I'll go too, Qiao Rui said. Okay. Bai Xiaowen nodded in agreement. Since there was trouble, there was no reason not to take two strong teammates with him. Brother, are you leaving again? Is it very serious? Xiaojun asked. Bai Xiaowen smiled and stroked Xiaojun's hair. White Stone Hill is the economic foundation of our team. We can't afford any mistakes. Don't worry, it'll be a short trip this time. I'll be back in about a week. It had been 6 or 7 months since the last time they returned from Whitestone Hill. Whitestone Hill's fief order only allowed them to stay for 1 day every month. Now that Bai Xiaowen had arrived at the Kane dimension, even if the problem could not be solved, they would still have to return at the stipulated time. There's no time to lose. Let's go now, Qiao Rui said. Bai Xiaowen waved his hand and dialed Han Su's number. At the same time, he said to Qiao Rui, in addition to the 3 fixed members of our team, we also have a temporary member. I plan to bring Han Su. Well, he's the MT of the league team. This time, the exploration of the spiritual realm is different from the usual missions. One more person means one more strength. It's also an opportunity for Han Su to improve his strength. After the call was connected, Bai Xiaowen quickly confirmed that Han Su was at Jinghai University. After a brief explanation of the situation, Han Su did not hesitate to agree to the temporary team invitation. This was indeed an opportunity that many awakened could not ask for. Hansu drove to the Crimson Fire District. The three of them made a little preparation. After explaining the situation to Li Beihai, they brought along the two white eagles, E1 and Air, and went downstairs to meet up with Hansu. 4 people and 2 birds stood in front of the Super Gods building in the Crimson Fire Square. After Bai Xiaowen confirmed the status of each team member, he used the Whitestone Hills fief order. In a flash of white light, he rushed to the Cane Dimension again. Cane Dimension, Northern Whitestone City. Unlike the peace and tranquility last time, Whitestone City was now filled with shouts and screams. Teams of black armored soldiers were attacking the city. Arrows rained down from the city walls, and soldiers died every second. Hold on. Don't let the Ironthorn bastards reach the top of the city wall. His lordship will be here soon. A silver-armored knight shouted sternly. He waved his two-handed sword and killed 2 black-armored soldiers who rushed to the top of the city wall. Captain Tim. There's a problem at the West City Wall. A few very powerful guys rushed over. Even Captain Phil was injured. A Whitestone City soldier said, panting. Damn it. Knight Tim snorted angrily. You guys guard this place. I'll be back soon. His blood-stained cloak fluttered as he turned and ran to the west. However, before Tim arrived, he heard a loud noise and the earth rumbled and shook. As smoke and dust filled the air, a large part of the West City Gate collapsed. Amidst the creaking sounds, a 5-meter-tall steel war puppet was leisurely smashing the city wall with its heavy steel fists. The city wall is falling. Tim felt a chill run down his spine. The enemy has rushed into the city. Captain Tim, what should we do? Tim shuddered. Cecilia's instructions appeared in his mind again. Hold on, fight the enemy in the streets. We can't let down his lordship and the governor's trust in us. Tim raised his two-handed sword and shouted, charge! For Whitestone City. The Whitestone City soldiers responded with shouts and rushed to meet the enemy without any regard for their own safety. Below the city wall, a handsome young man dressed in martial attire and riding a white horse looked at the West City Wall that had already been breached and smiled proudly. Herald, tell those mercenaries that they can kill, but they must not deliberately destroy the important buildings in this city, especially the Research Institute. This is the property of the Ironthorn family. Beside the young man in martial attire, the old butler Herald smiled and said, Young Master Stantine, please rest assured. When we signed the contract, I already explained this point. I have to say that those mercenaries are quite capable. They took the lead in breaching the city gate, so the commission was worth it. Baron Stantine snorted coldly. If it weren't for the family's elites being used to trap that woman Cecilia, why would I need to find these bumpkin mercenaries? A bunch of vulgar fellows. Harold could only change the topic. Young master, you don't have to pay attention to them. As long as we take Whitestone City and obtain the formula for the plague's nemesis, the Ironthorn family will become the only master of the North. Your position in the family will also be more stable. You will be the future king of the North. These words made Baron Stantine burst with joy. He pretended to be reserved and said, Now is not the time to celebrate. Order the soldiers to charge and kill all who resist. Plop. Tim spat out a mouthful of blood and his body fell heavily to the ground. His HP had already dropped to the bottom. A burly man with a double-edged axe carried the axe and walked forward with a relaxed expression. He laughed loudly. This city's defense is too weak. It doesn't even have a leader. What's the use of relying on a group of elite knights? Behind the double-edged axe man, a thin cloaked man said with dissatisfaction, This city's defense is still very strong. If it weren't for my war puppets breaking the gate, would you be so relaxed? Talik. A slender curly-haired woman next to him said, Don't complain, Eugene. Hurry up and release your puppets again. Completely destroy the enemy's morale. Puppeteer Eugene shook his head. No. Every time my puppets are activated, they consume psionic points. Maintaining them also requires psionic points. In order to break this damn gate, I've already spent over 3,000 psionic points. Who'll bear my losses? We're about to win anyway. If we win now or later, we'll just lose some soldiers of the Ironthorn family. It has nothing to do with us awakened ones. The double-edged axeman Talek arrived in front of Captain Tim. I want this elite's head. He swung his axe down. Tim rolled on the ground and dodged the axe. He was already heavily injured. Seeing the soldiers of Whitestone City being killed one after another, despair welled up in his heart. These mercenaries without any morals are actually so powerful. I'm sorry, Lady Cecilia. I'll have to disappoint you. Talek's axe missed and said with dissatisfaction. What are you still holding on for? You're ridiculous. Hurry up and die. He stepped forward again. Suddenly, a white light flashed. Whoosh 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 whoosh. 4 figures appeared on the battlefield. Who is it? In this small battlefield, the attacking Ironthorn soldiers were stunned. They had never seen such a way of appearing. It was as if a living person had appeared out of thin air. Awakened ones? How come there isn't even an initial entry point? The double-edged axeman Talek, the puppeteer Eugene and the curly-haired woman Judith were all puzzled. Without knowing whether the newcomers were friend or foe, the 3 of them chose to observe for the time being. The 4 members of the White Phoenix team had just seen the outside world when they heard the battle cries. Looks like we're in big trouble. We've actually been invaded by foreign enemies. Li Shi narrowed his eyes and said. Bai Xiaowen's insight was stronger. He looked around and understood the general situation. Looking at the emblem on the enemy's armor, it should be the emblem of the Ironthorn family of Blackrock City. As for the 3 people standing in front of us, they probably came from the same place as us. Bai Xiaowen's mouth showed a sneer. Qiao Rui glanced at the 3 people opposite him. They're all elite professions. Do you want to communicate with them? We don't have time. Just do it. You dare to come to my territory without knowing the situation. You'll have to pay a price. Bai Xiaowen said lightly. What do you mean? What do you mean by your territory? The 3 of them just opened their mouths and wanted to ask for clarification. Bai Xiaowen had already made his move. He made a pressing motion with one hand, and a powerful spiritual deterrence burst forth. All the enemies within the range of Bai Xiaowen's spiritual power felt a mountain-like pressure, and they all knelt on the ground one after another. The Haoshikohaki was terrifying. Li Shi and Han Su rushed out at the same time. It was a combination of brutal charge plus aid. The 2 rushed to the front of the 3 hunters almost at the same time. Whoosh! Whoosh! Li Shi directly activated demonic fire dance. His 2 swords emitted flames as he stabbed at the axeman. The axeman's spiritual power was less than 30% of Bai Xiaowen's. He was currently in a stunned state and could not fight back. Vital attack. Vital attack. Critical attack. Vital attack. Li Shi slashed 4 times and the axeman's HP fell to the bottom. He quickly used the dispelling item and rolled over to avoid the additional attack. He shouted with lingering fear. What kind of monster is this? 1 slash can actually deal 3 damage. It also reduced my armor. Not far away, Qiao Rui blew the soul bamboo flute. A scale of destruction turned into a sound wave arrow and shot at the axeman as a finishing blow. Talek the axeman was scared out of his wits. He stuffed blood food into his mouth and shouted, Eugene, save me. Eugene the puppeteer cursed and had to use the dispelling item to remove the fear state. His heart ached as he summoned his puppet and blocked in front of Talek. He relied on the puppet's massive body to take the sound wave arrow head-on. Fortunately, the damage isn't very high. It only dealt a little more than 100 points to the war puppet. Eugene heaved a sigh of relief. Qiao Rui kept blowing the flute as a second sound wave arrow shot out. It's actually a basic spell? It can deal 100 plus damage? Eugene's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. That woman's spiritual power must be super high. A hero class. The 3 looked at each other and quickly reached a consensus. Run. However, before they could take 2 steps, a group of skeleton swordsmen led by a huge zombie monster in strange clothes blocked their path. So many summoned creatures. Another hero class, the curly-haired Judith cried out in despair. They could still escape if there was 1 hero class, but 2. They did not even have the right to escape. We surrender. We demand the loser's terms. The 3 were very tactful. Each of you has to pay at least 10,000 psionic points. If it's not enough, use items as collateral. Bai Xiaowen glanced at the 3 who were almost kneeling and begging for mercy. He snorted and said, "Time limit, 30 seconds. No more waiting. It's so expensive. I'm only level 6. I should only take 6,000 points." The curly-haired Judith still wanted to argue, but Bai Xiaowen waved his hand to stop her. 20 seconds left. The 3 elites were devastated. They could only painfully hand over their psionic points and sign the loser's terms. They raced against time to escape from the battlefield and quickly return. If they violated the terms, the price would be even greater. Captain Tim looked at this scene in a daze. The 3 seemingly powerful mercenaries did not even have the courage to fight. They were intimidated by the Lord. Hope reignited in Tim's heart. He shouted, "My lord." Yes. After dealing with the awakened who stirred up the situation, it's time to understand the situation. Tim, what happened? Where is Cecilia? Bai Xiaowen walked over and took out a bandage to bandage Tim's wound. Then, he fed him a bottle of advanced health potion. Tim gasped in pain. He gritted his teeth and said, "It's all because of the despicable Ironthorn family." Tim regained some of his mobility and followed Bai Xiaowen up the city wall. When Bai Xiaowen overlooked the battlefield and looked for the enemy's general, he told Bai Xiaowen the whole story. Chapter 691. Ever since Bai Xiaowen taught the Ironthorn family a lesson, Black Rock City had been well behaved for a long time. There were only 2 territories in the northern lands, and they had been living in harmony. According to the compensation agreement signed between Bai Xiaowen and the Ironthorn family, the Whitestone Caravan would travel to Black Rock City every half a month for trade. The trade went smoothly many times. Although Black Rock City tried to lower the price, the Whitestone Caravan generally did not suffer much discrimination. This was all thanks to Bai Xiaowen, who had specifically stated that discriminatory taxation was not allowed when he signed the agreement. However, a week ago, the Whitestone Caravan was detained in Black Rock City. Both sides agreed to negotiate. Cecilia brought Nightmark and a small group of elite cavalry and rushed over. However, 2 days had passed and there was still no reply. The Whitestone citizens waited anxiously, but in the end, what they waited for was the invasion of Black Rock City. Hearing this, Bai Xiaowen frowned. The Empire's laws prohibit attacks between nobles' territories. Why did Black Rock City suddenly send troops? Knight Tim was tongue-tied and could not say anything. Bai Xiaowen shook his head. Perhaps there are some unforeseen events that we do not know of. However, when we get rid of the enemy in front of us, I believe we will have an answer. Captain, we have confirmed the general situation of the battlefield. Qiao Rui lightly leaped onto the city wall and placed her palm on Bai Xiaowen's forehead. Scenes of information that the spirit of the falcon saw were transmitted to Bai Xiaowen for him to see. Bai Xiaowen closed his eyes for a moment before opening them again. The enemy's commander is actually an acquaintance. Bai Xiaowen's lips curled into a cold smile. At first, I was worried that it would be difficult to deal with the enemy due to their large numbers, but now it's easy. Han Su, Sister Qiao, lead the soldiers to guard the city wall. Shi, come with me. Bai Xiaowen recalled his summoned creatures and whistled. The white eagles circling in the sky swooped down one by one. Li Shi followed suit and called for the white eagles to fly to the city wall. The 2 of them leaped onto the backs of the white eagles. The 2 white eagles let out a screech and flapped their wings. They flew with all their might towards the commander of the Ironthorn family, Baron Stantine. The white eagles flew very quickly, and in just a few seconds, Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi were already above Baron Stantine. At this moment, the soldiers of the Ironthorn family, including Baron Stantine, did not know what was going on. 1 and 2 swooped down. What monsters? It's 2 eagles. The enemy is a beast tamer, their target. Shoot them down. The officers of the Ironthorn family reacted quickly and ordered their archers to draw their bows and prepare to shoot. However, when the white eagle swooped down to a height of about 10 meters, it suddenly pulled up like a fighter jet. With a screech, it rushed into the sky again. Before the crowd could react, the 2 figures had already jumped down. Arrows whizzed through the air, but a huge figure appeared out of nowhere. The butcher blocked all the arrows for the 2 of them. Bai Xiaowen landed on the ground with the posture of an athlete at the starting line. The ground trembled slightly, and cracks appeared on it. Smoke and dust filled the air. He lost a few dozen HP. It was clear that landing like this was not easy to deal with. If it was a normal jump of a dozen meters, Bai Xiaowen wouldn't lose any HP. But he had jumped down from the back of a white eagle, so he had a powerful inertia. Li Shi's dexterity was higher, so he rolled to neutralize the recoil and wasn't injured. She used the recoil to shoot out like an arrow towards Baron Stantine's position. "Protect the young master!" Harold shouted in panic. He never thought that the enemy would use such a strange method to rush in front of Baron Stantine, who was heavily guarded by soldiers. There were only 10 elite cavalrymen by Baron Stantine's side, as well as a rare elite knight captain. The sudden change made the cavalrymen unable to use their advantage. Instead, Li Shi's sword stabbed their horses. The horses neighed and the cavalrymen were thrown off their horses. Bai Xiaowen fired at Baron Stantine, but the first shot was blocked by a loyal Ironthorn cavalryman. However, that Ironthorn cavalryman's head was also blown off. The second shot didn't have such terrifying power. Bai Xiaowen directly used rapid fire and fired at Baron Stantine. Baron Stantine raised the shield on his left wrist to block, but Bai Xiaowen's marksmanship was already level 7 and he used numbers to replace accuracy. How could it be blocked that easily? After a few clangs, 2 hot bullets embedded themselves in his flesh. Baron Stantine's HP dropped by half and he fell off his horse. "Protect me! Protect me!" Baron Stantine hid behind the corpse of his horse as he roared in shock and anger. The surrounding soldiers of the Ironthorn family reacted and gathered around the battlefield. Seeing that there were only 2 people, Baron Stantine let out a sigh of relief. He felt that he had the advantage in numbers. He wanted to ask about the other side's background, but he saw Bai Xiaowen's face. With a whoosh, Baron Stantine jumped up in shock. "You are Dior C. Kale Bloom, the cold-blooded demon of the north." "We meet again, Stantine." Bai Xiaowen softly said, "It's a pity that you didn't learn your lesson last time. Dior, it's you who didn't understand the situation." 2 groups of infantrymen charged over and protected Baron Stantine. The latter quickly calmed down and revealed a noble's polite smile. "White Stonehill will be the territory of the Ironthorn family from now on. A lord like you actually rushed over to your death, saving us a lot of effort." Bai Xiaowen slightly shook his head. A year ago, during the War of the Survivors, the Ironthorn family was scared out of the Black Rock Fort. "So, you don't know who you were messing with. You don't know what I can do." Accompanied by Bai Xiaowen's words, a dense aura spread out once again. The deterrence skill was used for the second time. After deterrence was upgraded to LV6, including strongest Brainiac +1, the cooldown of this large-scale control skill had been reduced to 3 minutes 45 seconds. With a roar, the butcher activated the corrosive poison fog. His thick arms waved the giant snake scepter as he charged forward. Behind the butcher, the skeleton warriors and skeleton sword shield bearers steadily advanced. Bai Xiaowen took a deep breath and a flame ignited in his palm. The flames of Ultra Orochi surged out violently. All the Ironthorn soldiers in front of Stantine were engulfed in the flames. Most of the soldiers were within the range of the butcher's close combat and were affected by the corrosive poison fog. Miserable cries sounded, and the Ironthorn soldiers were like grains of sand being slapped by a giant wolf as they were sent flying backward. The normal infantrymen were burned to ashes, and even the elite cavalrymen lost more than half of their health points and were heavily injured. After clearing the obstacles in front of him with the giant snake scepter, Bai Xiaowen quickly summoned the Wrath Claw, Delifa, and other creatures to reap the rewards. Li Shi was the fastest. She activated the Bloodlord's insignia's additional skill, Wrath of the Bloodlord, which increased her movement speed by 17%. After killing an enemy with low health points, her movement speed increased by another 17%. Coupled with her high dexterity, she was as fast as a ghost. In the blink of an eye, she had stabbed another enemy who was 5 meters away. Li Shi's Killing Madman title also played a role as it increased Li Shi's attack speed. Sword shadows flew as Li Shi charged in front of Baron Stantine at an astonishing speed. Baron Stantine raised his shield in a panic to block, but in a flash, Li Shi had already circled behind him. She followed up with a normal attack and 3 consecutive slashes, dealing a large amount of damage. The 20% armor break effect took effect and the final slash pierced through Baron Stantine's back. Vital Strike. Baron Stantine was heavily injured and immediately knelt on the ground with a scream. His health points fell to the bottom and he was also inflicted with a heavy bleeding effect. Li Shi pulled out the sword in her right hand and placed the sword in her left hand on his neck. Have your men put down their weapons. Otherwise, I'll cut you down. At the end of the road, Baron Stantine had some courage as he loudly shouted, "Impossible!" Li Shi communicated with Bai Xiaowen in the Teen channel. She didn't kill him, but 2 skeleton sword shield bearers came over and twisted Baron Stantine's arms to guard him. Harold called out in shock, "Quick, Beasley, save the young master." With a plop, a bloody armored corpse rolled in front of Harold. This person was Beasley, the captain of the personal guards and a rare elite. Harold froze. He raised his head with difficulty and looked at Bai Xiaowen standing in front of him. Bai Xiaowen didn't have a single trace of blood on her, she was as clean as a gentleman. But Harold's heart was filled with fear. He finally understood why the man in front of him was called the Disaster of the North, the cold-blooded demon. "Stantine, you're not letting the soldiers surrender. You're just letting them die in vain and increasing the casualties," Bai Xiaowen said calmly. "Delifa, you can start preparing." Delifa nodded and began to chant corpse resuscitation. 10 seconds later, skeleton warriors crawled up from the corpses of the dead soldiers. They raised their rusty swords and charged at the Ironthorn soldiers who came to rescue. Moreover, Delifa's soul guidance was still in effect. As long as her spirit wasn't exhausted, the surrounding corpses would continue to be turned into skeleton warriors. With these newborn skeleton warriors at the front, Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi naturally had enough room to attack. The speed at which they killed the enemy and created corpses was astonishing. This was especially true for Li Shi. During the duration of the Wrath of the Great Lord, she was practically a cheat-like existence. Her extremely high movement speed made it difficult for enemies to even touch her clothes, and even if she was occasionally injured, her powerful lifesteal ability allowed her to quickly recover her health. The Ironthorn soldiers charged in vain several times. Not only were they unable to save Stantine, the number of newborn skeleton warriors increased. You demon! Baron Stantine didn't know what to say. "You really are a useless noble. You don't even know how to curse." Bai Xiaowen's Desert Eagle continued to shoot out flames. He specifically targeted the uninjured enemies with full HP. Every shot would trigger bloodlust, so the speed at which he killed the enemies wasn't any slower than Li Shi. Seeing that victory was hopeless and the number of skeleton warriors kept increasing, Baron Stantine finally accepted his fate. He said dejectedly, "Harold, have them put down their weapons." Under Bai Xiaowen's gaze, Harold trembled as he took out a magic whistle and blew into it. The short whistle was amplified by magic and spread across the battlefield. The Ironthorn soldiers who were besieging Whitestone City with heavy casualties heard the whistle. After the initial confusion, they quickly retreated and approached Baron Stantine's flag. Harold loudly shouted, "Put down your weapons! Put down your weapons! This is Lord Baron Stantine's order." Li Shi nodded in satisfaction. But the sword pressed against Harold's back moved forward another half an inch, forcing Harold to shout himself hoarse to convey Baron Stantine's order. Clang, 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 clang. The sound of weapons falling to the ground could be heard. The Ironthorn soldiers threw down their weapons one by one and were driven to the open ground by Xiaowen's skeleton warriors. They crouched down with their hands on their heads. Of course, even more people chose to escape from the battlefield. The White Stone City soldiers, under the lead of Knights Tim and Phil, walked out of the city gates and watched over the unarmed surrendered soldiers. Baron Stantine noticed that batch after batch of newborn skeleton warriors began to die, scattering their skeletons on the ground. He said in shock, "These skeleton warriors only have the ability to move temporarily? They can't last long." With a series of crackling sounds, the skeleton warriors fell one after another. Bai Xiaowen obviously knew that he couldn't hide it, so he smiled and said, "That's right." At the same time, he gave Li Shi a look. Baron Stantine's expression changed. If the skeleton warriors only had the ability to move temporarily, he would be a complete idiot to tell the soldiers to give up resisting. However, before he could yell out, Li Shi hit the back of his head with a palm knife from behind. Baron Stantine's vision turned black and he fainted on the ground. "You murdered the young master?" Harold exclaimed. "Calm down, Butler Harold," Bai Xiaowen lightly said. "I still have a lot of questions to ask him. Before that, he can't die even if he wants to." Two skeleton warriors cooperated and pried open Baron Stantine's mouth. They poured a hemostatic potion and tied him up. Bai Xiaowen gave the order to tie up the unarmed surrendered soldiers. After counting, they found that there were more than 800 surrendered soldiers. This time, Baron Stantine led 2,500 soldiers to attack White Stone City and left a few hundred corpses on the city walls. Then after the order to surrender was given, there was another group of soldiers who didn't want to be captives and didn't dare to continue fighting, so they became deserters. So in the end, these 800 surrendered soldiers were detained. Chapter 692. Tim, Phil, and the other knights really had their eyes opened. Bai Xiaowen's strength was much stronger than during the War of the Survivors. In this kind of war with thousands of people, he was able to kill the enemy's leader and force the enemy to surrender. Hansu also had his eyes opened. He had only seen Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi's performance in the league, but this was the first time he had seen them in the spiritual world. Having such a teammate made him feel at ease. City Lord's Manor. Hua! A bucket of cold water was poured over Baron Stantine and he woke up with a start. The first thing he felt when he woke up was pain. The pain of his broken arms came wave after wave and cold sweat appeared on Baron Stantine's forehead. "Speak, where is Cecilia now? Why did Black Rock City suddenly attack White Stone City?" A demonic voice sounded and Baron Stantine suddenly raised his head. Sitting on the city lord's throne, Bai Xiaowen didn't mind Baron Stantine's cannibalistic gaze as he coldly said, "If I'm not wrong, the Empire should have a corresponding law that doesn't allow lords to use violence to invade territory. You dared to do this, what happened?" Baron Stantine clenched his teeth and remained silent. Bai Xiaowen shook his head, "I don't have time to waste with you. Since you don't want to speak, then let Butler Harold tell me." Harold's chubby face was deathly pale, but he shook his head with all his might. "I won't say anything. I won't betray the Ironthorn family." Baron Stantine was a bit emotional. "Harold, the Ironthorn family will remember your loyalty." What a touching scene, but it's a pity that we are enemies. Bai Xiaowen slowly walked down from the throne and came in front of Harold. "I'll ask again, are you going to speak?" Harold, who had just been encouraged, straightened his neck. "Kill me. It's not that easy to die." Bai Xiaowen snorted, but his hands were accurate and ruthless. With two soft sounds, he broke Harold's arms. His white bones were exposed to the air as blood flowed out. Harold screamed in pain and almost fainted. However, just as Harold was in a daze, the talisman in Bai Xiaowen's palm flashed and switched to the charm of confusion. It shot into Harold's forehead like a bolt of lightning. The enemy's strength ratio is 0. 128, 1. The charm of confusion has succeeded. Steward Harold of the Ironthorn family in Blackrock City has been bewitched. Bai Xiaowen quickly activated his mental sensing ability and went through all of Harold's memory fragments. He closed his eyes and pondered. Harold's condition was very strange. After being hit by the charm, he lowered his head and didn't make a sound. Even his twisted arms that were dripping with blood were hanging down casually. His screams stopped abruptly. Baron Stantine angrily said, "You beast, you actually dared to kill Harold." Bai Xiaowen suddenly opened his eyes. So that's how it is. To think that such a huge change would occur in the Gorse Empire. What's the change? Li Shi asked. Bai Xiaowen looked around at his teammates and said, "Just a month ago, the Emperor of the Gorse Empire passed away. Logically speaking, Prince Nicholas should have inherited the throne, but his uncle started a coup and received the support of a group of conservative nobles. Both sides are currently in a fierce battle, and it's not clear who will take the throne." Qiao Rui nodded and said, "If the strength of both sides is close, even if one side wins, it will be greatly weakened and lose its influence over the lords, especially the lords of the borderlands." Li Shi suddenly understood. No wonder the Ironthorn family dared to violate the Empire's laws and make a move against Whitestone region. As long as it's an established fact, even the new Emperor can't do anything about it. Whitestone region's information is still too limited. If Cecilia knew about the internal strife in the Gorse Empire, she would probably be more vigilant about the caravan seizure and wouldn't easily rush to Blackrock Fort for negotiations, Bai Xiaowen said. "How is Cecilia now?" Li Shi asked. Cecilia was ambushed by the Ironthorn army. But the good news is that Cecilia has rich battle experience and noticed the traces of the ambush in advance. She defended Cold Spring Valley and didn't completely fall into the enemy's trap and be defeated. Until last night, before Blackrock Fort sent troops, Cecilia was still persistently resisting, Bai Xiaowen said. "That's good. Let's hurry and help her. This time, we'll teach the Ironthorn family of Blackrock Fort an unforgettable lesson," Li Shi said as he waved his small fist. As they discussed, they completely ignored Baron Stantine, whose mouth was opening wider and wider. "You guys, how do you know all this?" "I didn't say anything." Bai Xiaowen didn't bother with Baron Stantine. He called Night Phil over and had him bring Baron Stantine into the prison and guard him closely. "Xiaowen, what's the point of keeping him? Just kill him. Maybe there'll be a treasure chest." Li Shi revealed his greedy side. Bai Xiaowen shook his head. "He's only an elite. He won't be able to do anything with his arms broken. This Baron might be useful in the future. Why don't we keep him for now and consider whether to kill him after the matter is completely resolved?" Qiao Rui agreed with Bai Xiaowen's opinion. "That's right. It's easy to kill him anyway. It's just a matter of one strike." The honest man Han Su on the side shrunk his neck. Why are the beauties around the captain so fierce? As soon as Baron Stantine was taken away, a skinny figure whose head was wider than his shoulders rushed in. "Boss. I finally see you. This world is too dangerous. I want to go back to the South Island." Zombie Doctor almost hugged Bai Xiaowen's leg and cried. "All right. You're already a dead person. It doesn't matter if you die 1 or 2 more times. You'll be revived in 12 hours. Bai Xiaowen said irresponsibly. "But I'll lose my memories if I die. My memories are precious treasures." Zombie Doctor emphasized. By the way, how's the progress of the research I asked you to do before I left?" Bai Xiaowen asked. Zombie Doctor played dumb. "What research?" Bai Xiaowen snapped his fingers. Della Fa. The soul-assimilating banshee appeared with a whip in her hand. She looked at Zombie Doctor with a malicious smile. Zombie Doctor raised his hands in surrender. "Boss, I know. It's the research on making undead creatures gain self-awareness. This research is too difficult. I still don't have a clue. I still need more information, such as the research notes of a master alchemist. Forget it, let's put that research aside for now, Bai Xiaowen said. I'll give you something. Study how to use it on the butcher first. I'm warning you, don't break it. He took out the stomach of the flesh devourer. Chapter 693. Dr. Zombie carried the flesh devourer's stomach pouch and went down to study it. Night Tim entered the main hall. The wounds on his body had just been bandaged, and they were still bleeding. Didn't I tell you to rest? Bai Xiaowen said. Tim clenched his right fist and knocked on his chest, performing a knight's etiquette in the cane plane. Sir Lord, please take me with you to rescue Lady Cecilia. She must be in great danger now. Bai Xiaowen nodded. I know. But you don't have to go. No, I have to go. As a guardian knight, I have always regretted not persisting in following Lady Cecilia. Instead, I was ordered to guard Whitestone City. If anything happens to Lady Cecilia, all the glory I have gained since I became a knight will be gone. Tim insisted. Sir, although I am injured, I can still fight. I want to rescue Lady Cecilia with my own hands. There was a commotion outside the door, and a group of white-armored knights rushed into the main hall. Sir Dior, please take me with you. I also want to participate in the battle to rescue Lady Cecilia. Bai Xiaowen glanced around. The white-armored knights in front of him were almost all Cecilia's original subordinates. They were mounted archers that she had brought up. All of them were elites, and there were more than 30 of them. All right, I agree to take you with me. Seeing the joy on the faces of the knights, Bai Xiaowen changed the topic. However, I have a request. Sir Lord, please say it, Captain Tim said. The people who follow me on this expedition must strictly obey my orders without any objections, Bai Xiaowen said. This is very important. I know you are eager to rescue Cecilia, but an army can only have one voice to command. If everyone has their own ideas, they will only become a pile of loose sand. Captain Phil said, we are knights under the command of Whitestone City. Of course, we will listen to Sir Lord's orders. Captain Tim was cautious. If it is a wrong order, do we still have to obey it? Bai Xiaowen said faintly, on the battlefield, there is no right or wrong in a commander's orders. It is wrong for everyone to stick to their own opinions and not follow orders. As for my request, you must swear on your honor as a knight before I can take you to battle. Otherwise, I would rather choose people from the construction corps of the original Whitestone region. The knights had no choice but to raise their hands and swear at the same time. Bai Xiaowen was slightly relieved and quickly walked out of the main hall. At the same time, he asked, how many soldiers are left in Baishur City who can fight? Captain Tim followed behind and reported, there were originally close to 1,000 soldiers in the city. In the battle to defend the city, more than 300 died, and even more were injured. At present, apart from the 34 of us, there are less than 400 soldiers who can fight. It's enough. Bai Xiaowen nodded slightly. Tim, go and reorganize the troops immediately. Other than your 34 mounted archers, choose another 100 shield-bearing infantrymen. Only infantry? Tim asked in surprise. The infantrymen can't keep up with our marching speed. Besides, to rescue Lady Cecilia, the most important thing is time. This is an order. Bai Xiaowen repeated. Tim was suddenly speechless. After saluting, he quickly walked out. Bai Xiaowen walked to the gate of the Lord's mansion and closed his eyes slightly. The topographic map of the Cane Northland appeared in his mind. The positions of Whitestone City, Black Rock City, Cold Spring Valley, the surrounding roads, mountains, rivers, and so on flashed through his mind. After about a quarter of an hour, Bai Xiaowen opened his eyes. He heard a series of dense footsteps. My lord, I have brought the 100 shield-bearing infantrymen you asked for. Tim's voice sounded. Bai Xiaowen nodded. Have the dry rations and water for the march been prepared? It's all ready. Bai Xiaowen nodded in satisfaction. Tim's efficiency was quite high. Now, listen to my orders. Bai Xiaowen cleared his throat. Li Shi beside him opened the map with a whoosh. Phil, you will lead the infantrymen directly towards the northeast. Our target is Black Rock City. What? Captain Phil thought he had misheard. Phil hurriedly said, My lord, you said before that Lady Cecilia was trapped in Cold Spring Valley and not Black Rock City. Yes, but Black Rock City's defense is very weak. I plan to take over Black Rock City this time. Bai Xiaowen's eyes shone. Black Rock City sent out their elites to besiege Cecilia and more than 2,000 soldiers to besiege Whitestone City. How many soldiers does the Ironthorn family have left? Now is the best time to take over Black Rock City. But Phil was unwilling to give up. I know what you want to say. As for Cecilia, I will go and rescue her, Bai Xiaowen said calmly. You should have seen my strength in the previous battle. To put it bluntly, even if you follow me to Cold Spring Valley, you won't be of much help. It's better to lead the troops to Black Rock City first. The marching speed of the shield-wielding infantrymen is slow, so we have to set off early. There's no need to go to Cold Spring Valley. Phil could only agree. Of course, this was also due to the persuasive power that Bai Xiaowen had displayed in the previous battle. Hansu, Sister Qiao, do you know how to ride a horse? Bai Xiaowen asked. Yes. Hansu and Qiao Rui nodded at the same time. With the physique of an awakened, riding a horse was not difficult. Of course, awakened ones who mastered the ability to fight on horseback were relatively rare. You will lead the 32 mounted archers to Cold Spring Valley. Shi and I will take the White Eagles and fly to Cold Spring Valley first, Bai Xiaowen said. The flying speed of the White Eagles, E1 and Air 2, was clearly much faster than the horses. Okay. Qiao Rui nodded without hesitation. My lord, what about me? Tim asked. Including the wounded soldiers, Whitestone City still has more than 600 soldiers, but there are 800 prisoners of war. There are even more Ironthorn family soldiers outside. You must stay and lead the Whitestone City's soldiers to defend the city and look after the prisoners, Bai Xiaowen said. Tim was stunned. He had to defend the city again? Seeing that Tim was about to speak, Bai Xiaowen waved his hand to stop him. Okay, I'm going to set off immediately to rescue Cecilia. Every minute you delay, Cecilia will be in more danger. You're already injured, so it's not good for you to ride a bumpy horse. You're the best candidate to stay and defend the city. Yes. Although Tim was unwilling, he could only obey. After agreeing on a rendezvous signal with Qiao Rui and Phil, Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi respectively mounted the White Eagles. Let's go! The goal of this battle is to rescue Cecilia and capture Black Rock City. Chapter 694. Cold Spring Valley, the sky was dark. At the top of a mountain ridge full of rocks, a series of horizontal gullies had been dug out. Together with piles of stones, they formed a simple fortification. Whitestone City's Lord Cecilia and her 100 or so knights were hiding behind the fortification. The elites of the Ironthorn clan had already surrounded the rocky mountain. In the past day, the Ironthorn army had launched more than 10 attacks, but they were all repelled by Cecilia's knights. There were many corpses on the rugged path of the mountain. Dried blood could be seen everywhere on the ground. The Ironthorn army was resting at the foot of the mountain, conserving their strength for tomorrow's attack. Cecilia's troops, who were trapped at the top of the mountain, could not rest. They had to be on high alert at all times. In the night where vision was limited, the rugged path became a barrier for the enemy to sneak in. If they were not careful, it would be easy for the enemy to sneak in. After all, Cecilia's troops were too few. Cecilia, dressed in white armor, held a silver bow and looked up at the dim moon. Lady Cecilia. Knight Marco's voice sounded. Cecilia sighed. Begin the report. Yes. In the battle during the day, because the Ironthorn army was not able to attack the mountain, our losses were limited. But because the last counterattack failed, more than 10 of our brothers were sacrificed. Currently, we have 86 men. More than 20 of them are injured, but they still have the ability to fight. Cecilia listened quietly and said, "What about rations and arrows? When we went to Black Rock City this time, each of us brought 4 days' worth of rations. We can still hold on. But the arrow consumption is too high. According to the intensity of today's battle, the remaining arrows can only last for 2 hours." Cecilia's expression was grim. The knights that Cecilia brought were mainly mounted archers who were good at archery. This was also the reason why Cecilia's troops could defend the mountain for a day without many casualties. The higher the ground, the greater the advantage of shooting. Once the arrows ran out, although the mounted archers were equipped with long swords and could fight in close range, this was not their forte. Moreover, in close combat, the disadvantage in numbers would be magnified. "Lady Cecilia, why don't we take a gamble and rush down the mountain?" Knight Marco said, "We will try our best to create chaos. You may be able to escape from the encirclement. As long as you return to Whitestone City, you will be safe." Cecilia sighed softly. Whitestone City, we still don't know what the current situation is like. The military power of the Ironthorn family was far more than the soldiers at the foot of the mountain. Perhaps the Ironthorn army has already split into 2 groups, with one group heading to attack Whitestone City. Marco's face turned pale. What Cecilia said was indeed possible. There's no point in charging now. You'll just be throwing your life away. There were mages in the enemy army who had set up a magical arm in advance. In addition, even without these alarm devices, the enemy's commander, Ricardo, who was known as the Iron Wall, was also a veteran general who had experienced hundreds of battles. He surrounded the mountain with 10 times more soldiers than us. He's definitely heavily guarded and won't give us any chance. Marco gritted his teeth and said, "Trapped here, there's no hope at all." Cecilia seemed to be a little touched. She thought for a moment and said, "Even if we have to fight to the death, we have to do it at dawn, when the enemy's vigilance is at its lowest. Marco, go, let your comrades eat their fill and have a good rest." Marco understood the meaning behind Cecilia's words and nodded heavily. Cecilia looked up at the dim yellow moon. The dim light was extinguished, and a handsome face seemed to appear on the moon. "Dior," Cecilia murmured softly and exhaled. "I'm sorry." However, before Marco could take 2 steps, there was a commotion at the foot of the mountain. The sound of people shouting and horses neighing could be heard, accompanied by flames. Marco suddenly paused. "What happened?" Cecilia narrowed her eyes. "There seems to be a change in the Ironthorn army's camp. Could it be that our reinforcements have arrived?" Marco was excited. "Lady Cecilia, should we seize this opportunity? It's unlikely that they're reinforcements, and the timing doesn't seem right." Cecilia frowned and said, "We can't rule out the possibility that the enemy is deliberately showing weakness to lure us into a trap. However, we have no other choice now. If we delay, we'll only die a slow death. Marco, order the entire army to prepare for battle." "Yes." Half an hour ago, Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi rode on the White Eagle and rushed to the Cold Spring Valley. Finally, when night fell, they arrived above the Cold Spring Valley. "I can sense that Cecilia is on that mountain. From the familiar insignia of the camp at the foot of the mountain, it should be the Ironthorn army," Bai Xiaowen said through the team channel. Li Shi took a deep breath. "Fortunately, nothing happened. We made it in time." "Well, judging from the Ironthorn army's movements, they probably want to attack the mountain at dawn. That way, the possibility of Cecilia escaping is the lowest," Bai Xiaowen said. "Even if we came a few hours later, the result would be the same. There's nothing to be afraid of. Oh, I've found the enemy's commander. We're going to have a big fight." Li Shi rubbed his hands together. "After flying for so long, my accessories are off cooldown. Well, get ready. You're going to fight the enemy's commander alone," Bai Xiaowen said. "Li Shi, Sigma, degree. This is a chance to test your ability to fight independently," Bai Xiaowen said with a smile. "Just treat it as a drill before the hero trial. From the level of the Kane world, the enemy's commander is at most a level 7 leader. With your current strength, you still have a good chance of fighting him alone. What if the enemy restrains me? Li Shi felt a little guilty. If there's a leader that you can't defeat at all, it means that you haven't done enough preparation, Bai Xiaowen said. There's only one chance for the hero trial. You have to be 100% sure of it. You should be able to kill a higher-level leader in a one-on-one fight. You can use the Vigor Zombie Talisman once to test the skills of the Vigor Zombie Talisman. The Vigor Zombie Talisman could be used twice, so it didn't hurt to use it once. Li Shi nodded. Bai Xiaowen added, I won't share the information I see with you. You have to improvise. Okay. Li Shi also knew why Bai Xiaowen did this. During the hero trial, without Bai Xiaowen by his side, who would provide information on the boss skills? Only by relying on oneself could one become strong. After a short conversation, the two patted the White Eagles and swooped down. After landing, the White Eagles E1 and Air 2 quickly rose into the air. Servants and followers were different from summoned creatures. It was difficult to revive them after they died. Therefore, Bai Xiaowen wouldn't let the two White Eagles join the battle unless it was necessary. It would be a huge loss if they died. Who's there? Aya. The tremors of the landing naturally couldn't be hidden from the sentinels in the camp. However, as soon as the sentinel shouted, Li Shi quickly closed in and killed him with a slash to the throat. Bai Xiaowen directly released the skeleton swordsman. They started bonfires and burned tents in the camp. One by one, the Ironthorn soldiers woke up from their sleep. This army was indeed the elite of the Ironthorn family. The commander was also good at managing the army. The soldiers didn't even take off their armor when they slept. It could be said that they were ready for battle. Now that they were suddenly attacked, they were shocked but not panicked. One by one, the elite captains and officers began to order their subordinates to return to their positions and reorganize the army. Of course, Bai Xiaowen wouldn't give them the chance. He aimed with the Desert Eagle and began to target them one by one. Bai Xiaowen's shots could basically hit the vitals. These elite officers with full health were instantly killed by Bai Xiaowen's Desert Eagle. If Bai Xiaowen encountered a situation where he couldn't trigger a critical hit, he would directly airdrop a summon that was at least elite. The Butcher, the Skeleton Warrior, the Shadow Assassin, and the Banshee Delia were all sent out one after another. The Undead Fiend Arcane Master also appeared behind Bai Xiaowen and used Lightning Strike to deal the final blow. The Ironthorn elites were killed one after another. The originally reorganized Ironthorn soldiers couldn't find their captains, and the captains couldn't find their officers. They fell into chaos once again. As elites, no one fled even in the chaos. Instead, they relied on their own instincts to find the invading Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi. Waves of soldiers rushed over in a disorderly manner. The Butcher grunted twice. He swung his scepter and killed an elite officer with low health. He strode over to Bai Xiaowen's side and activated Decay. A purplish-black fog rapidly spread out. The charging Ironthorn soldiers felt as if they had fallen into a swamp. Moreover, their health rapidly decreased. With a boom, the commander's tent was also set ablaze. Whoosh! A one-handed hammer smashed down on the ignited skeleton swordsman, causing him to stagger back and lose more than half of his health. Following which, a tall figure wrapped in iron armor rushed out of the tent. A deep voice resounded, "Who are you people? This is the Ironthorn army's camp. I'm attacking the Ironthorn army." Bai Xiaowen chuckled and quickly used Insight. This was a level 7 leader called Ricardo. He was clearly the commander of the Ironthorn army. It was worth mentioning that Ricardo was actually a leader with a high physique. Moreover, from his previous attack on the skeleton swordsman, this guy's attack power was also quite high. A single hammer strike was able to take away more than half of the skeleton swordsman's health. It must be known that Bai Xiaowen's skeleton swordsman was different from ordinary cannon fodder. They were considered high-level cannon fodder. After being strengthened by the Black Soulstone twice and by Xiaowen's own body's bonuses, the skeleton swordsman had 22 points of physique and 220 points of health. In other words, Ricardo's hammer strike had caused 140 to 150 points of damage. This was already very shocking. Li Shi's feet flashed with light. He had already activated phase walk, the acceleration skill of his shoes. He passed through the chaotic soldiers and rushed in front of Ricardo. Smash into pieces in front of my iron wall. Ricardo shouted loudly and raised the heavy shield in his left hand. This heavy shield was very wide. It covered more than half of Ricardo's body. Li Shi's consecutive strikes all landed on the shield. Clanking sounds rang out, indicating that it was useless. Every time a clanking sound rang out, Ricardo's shield flashed with a dim light. After blocking 3 times, the light became brighter, as if it had been charged with energy. Ricardo's left arm drew an arc. With a bang, an enlarged shadow of a shield as big as a door was smashed out. The area of effect was too large. Li Shi had no time to dodge. He only had time to cross his 2 swords and block in front of him. His whole body was pushed back a few steps, and his health dropped rapidly. Bai Xiaowen had insight and received a notification. This was Ricardo's vengeful shield skill. He really is a boss that restrains Shi. But this is also good. He can squeeze out more of her potential. Bai Xiaowen had the clearest view of the 2 people fighting in the field. He had almost all the information of the 2 people's attributes and skills. If Bai Xiaowen controlled Li Shi's current template, he could definitely defeat Ricardo, the leader of the Iron Wall, in more than one way. Bai Xiaowen hoped that Li Shi could rely on her own battle wisdom to win. This would be a great boost to Li Shi's confidence. Of course, Bai Xiaowen wasn't idle either. He hoped that Li Shi and Ricardo could fight one-on-one. The Ironthorn soldiers didn't have the leisure to do so. They all gathered around. Bai Xiaowen could only summon the Wrath Claw to continuously kill the enemy soldiers. The Wrath Claw and the Butcher, one at the front and one at the back, were like 2 large gates that blocked the incoming Ironthorn soldiers. The summoned creatures went all out and attacked together with Bai Xiaowen, forcing the enemy to continuously retreat. It was worth mentioning that Bai Xiaowen was still controlling the Shadow Assassin to roam around the camp and set fire to various places to expand the scope of the chaos. On the battlefield, the battle between Li Shi and Ricardo was still ongoing. After paying a certain amount of HP, Li Shi tested 2 more of Ricardo's skills. One was a single target skill, Stun Strike, which Li Shi narrowly dodged. The other was a sweeping attack that dealt physical damage to enemies in a cone-shaped area. Li Shi didn't completely dodge and took the brunt of the attack. Li Shi had 350 HP, which was considered high among level 6 agility-based elites. However, after taking 2 hits, his HP was still reduced to over 100. It was clear that Ricardo's attack power was not ordinary. However, after testing out Ricardo's physique and testing 3 skills, Li Shi officially began his counterattack. Whoosh! The blood-red longsword in his left hand flashed with a demonic red light. A fountain of blood poured into Li Shi's HP and strength increased by 12 points. The shadow of a bat appeared behind Li Shi's back. The Blood Monarch's emblem was activated. Li Shi, who was already fast to begin with, was now as fast as lightning. She took full advantage of her speed advantage and circled around Ricardo. Just as she thrust out her sword, she appeared behind Ricardo in an instant. Ricardo gradually felt tired from running for his life. When he saw Li Shi's sword coming at him, the tip of the sword swayed and he didn't know where it was going. He hurriedly raised his shield with one arm and hid behind it. However, Li Shi's move was only a feint. Her real body had already turned behind Ricardo. The rebel commander's sword in her right hand accurately pierced the back of Ricardo's neck. Chapter 695. For successful hits allowed Li Shi's 2 passive abilities, Battle Zeal and Wind Thunder combo, to stack up. With the 20% armor reduction, Li Shi was able to fight more easily. She had already figured out Ricardo's attack pattern. She kept moving sideways to avoid Ricardo's one-handed hammer attacks and also avoided the heavy shield in front of her. She looked for an opening to deal damage and then immediately retreated. She wasn't greedy for DPS. Bai Xiaowen secretly nodded. Li Shi's adaptability wasn't bad. When Li Shi was fighting the boss, she had been under the protection of Bai Xiaowen's summoned creatures. The environment was relatively safe, so she had been thinking about how to maximize her damage output. But now that she was fighting the boss alone, Li Shi's fighting style quickly changed to guerrilla warfare. She took full advantage of her high agility and the speed advantage of the Bloodlord's emblem. She would rather lose her damage output than take the enemy's attacks. As an agility-based warrior, trading HP with a high-level physique boss was undoubtedly a stupid move. Moreover, when the Bloodlord's Wrath was active, Li Shi had 20% lifesteal and 15% attack damage bonus. Her lost HP was slowly recovering. When she landed a critical hit, her HP bar would increase by a small amount. Soon, Li Shi's HP was restored to the healthy level. Bai Xiaowen was relieved. He turned his attention to the surrounding Ironthorn army soldiers. By killing the Ironthorn army's elite officers, the Ironthorn army was disorganized. At this time, torches lit up on the mountaintop. Dense arrows whistled through the air. Cecilia led the knights to shoot arrows. The arrows were more powerful from the higher ground. In the chaos, the Ironthorn army soldiers had no time to defend. Normal soldiers would lose half their HP after taking one arrow. They would die after 2 or 3 arrows. Occasionally, the unlucky ones would be hit in the vitals and die after 1 arrow. Although Bai Xiaowen, Li Shi, and the summoned creatures were also within the range of the arrow formation and would also be injured, seeing the Ironthorn army soldiers being shot until they pissed their pants, this price was completely acceptable. The so-called war was just a bloody game to see who was more miserable. Ricardo, the commander of the Ironthorn family, wasn't as calm as Bai Xiaowen. He could only wave his one-handed hammer in vain, trying to kill this annoying fly that was circling around him so that he could free up his hands to command the battle. However, Li Shi's body was extremely slippery and fast. Ricardo's hammer couldn't even touch the corner of Li Shi's clothes. Li Shi dodged the skills that were occasionally mixed in with the normal hammering. He had used his HP to test out Ricardo's skills, and it was not in vain. Although Ricardo's maximum HP was high, he could not endure this kind of endless consumption. Very quickly, his HP fell to half. This feeling was extremely stifling. Suddenly, the faint blood-red light around Li Shi's body dissipated, and his speed slowed down. The duration of the wrath of the Sovereign had ended. Ricardo's spirit was lifted. Although he didn't understand why the enemy suddenly slowed down, it was undoubtedly a good thing. Ricardo took Li Shi's sword head-on and suddenly bent his body, slamming his hammer on the ground. This was Ricardo's last battle skill that he had yet to use, Earthquake Strike. In the conical area ahead, waves of earth undulated. Li Shi lost his footing and immediately fell into a state of severe slowing. Originally, Li Shi's speed was too fast, and this skill had a rather obvious raising of his hand. If he used it rashly, the probability of missing was very high. Ricardo was also a scheming boy. He had waited patiently until this moment, and at the cost of taking Li Shi's sword head-on, he finally succeeded in slowing down Li Shi. Ricardo saw the dawn of victory. The woman in front of him was slowed down. Next, he would use a combination of Stun Strike plus Sweep plus Shield of Vengeance. However, when the hammer came down, Li Shi's figure suddenly became illusory. The Ring of Nothingnesses incorporeal skill was activated. Li Shi dodged the Stun Strike like a ghost. She didn't dodge or evade. She endured the slowing effect and attacked Ricardo head-on. Ricardo's HP fell again. He roared in pain and swung his hammer continuously, but it kept hitting empty air. Just like the acceleration state just now, this damned witchcraft that can't hit me must have a duration. Ricardo hid behind his heavy shield to defend himself. As expected, Li Shi's incorporeal state only lasted for a few seconds before disappearing. Ricardo sneered. He only defended and didn't attack. After being attacked by Li Shi for nearly a minute, his HP was still close to half. It was as high as 500 to 600 points. Li Shi was at his wit's end. He only needed a few seconds to kill Li Shi. However, Li Shi took a step back and reached out his hand. A yellowish talisman flickered with light. Then, a 2.5-meter-tall zombie with a green face and fangs appeared. Its upper body muscles were much larger than its lower body. Vigor Zombie Talisman. Li Shi wasn't a summoner. He could only issue basic attack commands to the Vigor Zombie. The Vigor Zombie suddenly leaped and smashed its fists at Ricardo. Ricardo was shocked but didn't panic. Putting up a shield to defend himself had become his instinct. With a clanging sound, he staggered and almost fell. How is this possible? This zombie monster is so strong? Li Shi was also a little surprised. However, she reacted quickly. When Ricardo revealed a flaw, she followed behind the Vigor Zombie and stabbed with her swords, taking away dozens of Ricardo's HP. One-on-one combat wasn't Li Shi's strong suit. However, Li Shi was most used to attacking while being protected by summoned creatures. Perhaps the Vigor Zombie didn't have Bai Xiaowen's precise control and couldn't actively protect Li Shi. However, its 2.5-meter-tall body was a wall that couldn't be ignored. Li Shi used his speed advantage to circle around the Vigor Zombie. Occasionally, he would stab with his sword. It was actually easier than when he activated Wrath of the Grand Lord. The Iron Thorn Army, which hadn't received any orders, suffered a large number of casualties under Cecilia's arrow formation. Fortunately, these were the elites of the Iron Thorn Army. Otherwise, there would have been deserters. Even so, the morale of these soldiers was low. They were no longer as brave as they were when they attacked Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi. There were also loyal Iron Thorn soldiers who tried to support their commander. However, anyone who got close to Li Shi and Ricardo's battle was killed without exception. They either died from Bai Xiaowen's headshot or from being surrounded by summoned creatures. Knights of Baishar, charge! A cold woman's voice rang out. Seeing that the Iron Thorn Army had suffered heavy casualties and their morale had plummeted, Cecilia decisively launched a charge. The Knights of Baishar abandoned their horses and looked for openings to shoot arrows as they descended the mountain. Cecilia's personal strength played an important role. Every time her silver bow was drawn, it would take away the life of an Iron Thorn soldier. Moreover, it basically hit the throat, heart, and other vital points. Cecilia's ability to have such astonishing accuracy in a night battle was indeed extraordinary as the leader of the long-range shooting team. In addition, under the influence of Cecilia's buff skills, the Bao Knight's long-range shooting speed and damage increased by a notch. When the first batch of Baishar Knights reached the Iron Thorn camp, they put away their bows and took out their longswords to engage in hand-to-hand combat. Most of the Iron Thorn soldiers had lost their will to fight. Under the pincer attack of Bai Xiaowen and the Baishar Knights, they were defeated and fled. Ricardo was anxious, but there was nothing he could do. The Vigor Zombie in front of him didn't seem to be very strong, but every time its heavy fist smashed onto his shield, there would be an uncomfortable jolt that caused Ricardo's body to become slightly unstable, and Li Shi would often take advantage of this to attack him. Ricardo saw that the situation was not good and wanted to take a detour. He wanted to give up on fighting with Li Shi and join up with the troops. His strength was still in commanding troops. However, Li Shi was already prepared and ordered the Strength Zombie to use the Earth Shaker skill. The Strength Zombie raised its fists high and suddenly slammed them on the ground. The shockwave spread and the earth trembled. Ricardo was immediately slowed down, and his escape plan was ruined. However, as a high-level boss, Ricardo was not afraid of this kind of slow control and quickly recovered. Li Shi had long wanted to test the second skill and immediately ordered the Heavy Stomp skill. The Strength Zombie jumped high and landed on Ricardo. However, the movement was too long. Ricardo saw the landing point and immediately dodged to the side. With the Strength Zombie's leap and landing time, Ricardo could walk out of the range of the Heavy Stomp with his normal speed. However, Li Shi reacted quickly and directly used the additional skill of Bazaar's entanglement to trap Ricardo. This time, he had no way to escape. With a bang, Ricardo was hit by the shockwave. He suffered physical damage and was stunned. Li Shi understood that the starting movement of the heavy stomp skill was too long. If he used it first, the opponent could easily dodge it. From this, it seemed that heavy stomp should be used after the Earth Shaker skill. It was best to chain the skills together so that the opponent, who was slowed down, could not dodge. Li Shi was not afraid of the stunned Ricardo. He quickly stabbed with his two swords and slashed 3 times in a row. All the attacks were aimed at Ricardo's face, throat, and other vital points. Ricardo's HP plummeted without end. Even if his defense was high, he could not withstand the continuous attacks on his vital points. When he recovered, Ricardo's face was covered in blood. One of his eyes had been blinded by Li Shi and turned into a horrible bloody hole. Ricardo roared at the sky, but there was nothing he could do. With the strength zombie's protection, Li Shi could take away the last of his HP. On the other side, the Knights of Baishur City led by Cecilia had broken through the enemy's formation and reached the heart of the city. They had met up with Bai Xiaowen. "I knew it was you, my love." Cecilia's beautiful eyes flashed with tenderness and longing. It was enough to melt the heart of any man. "Cecilia, you're safe now," Bai Xiaowen said with a charming smile. "Come on, let's fight side by side and defeat these mobs together." Cecilia nodded and slashed with her longbow, causing a thorn soldier to stagger. Then, with a flick of her wrist, the bowstring twisted and killed the soldier. The summoned creatures immediately separated and welcomed Cecilia and her bound knights into the inner circle. The thorn soldiers wanted to take this opportunity to attack, but the butcher stepped forward and blocked the gap with his stalwart body. The purplish-black poisonous fog surged, causing the thorn soldiers to suffer again. The Bao Knights had a meat shield to defend themselves and could fight more effectively. With the addition of this group of long-range archers, especially Cecilia, the thorn soldiers were defeated even more. Cecilia saw Ricardo fighting with Li Shi. Her eyes were filled with killing intent as she drew her bow. "Ricardo of the Iron Wall." "Cecilia, don't worry about him." Bai Xiaowen quickly stopped her. "This is training for Charlotte." "Okay." Cecilia spoke bluntly to outsiders, but she was abnormally obedient to Bai Xiaowen. The arrow flew through the air and slightly changed its angle. It flew past Ricardo and killed a thorn soldier more than 100 meters away. Ricardo wanted to delay the Vigor Zombie until it disappeared, but although the Vigor Zombie didn't last long, it still lasted for 300 seconds. Ricardo couldn't delay it, and his HP was slowly being depleted by Li Shi. "I don't want to die." Ricardo knelt on the ground, covered in blood. As a Vitality-type boss, his death was also very tragic. His HP of more than 1,000 was almost completely depleted by Li Shi. The parts of his body that weren't covered by armor were covered in wounds. With a thud, Ricardo fell to the ground and died. V. I did it! In the party channel, Li Shi was cheering. This was the second time she had soloed a high-level boss. Unlike Xian Jiulan, who died in the water, Li Shi had killed Ricardo under fair conditions. It was very significant, and it was an immeasurable boost to Li Shi's confidence. But on the surface, Beauty Li was very calm. She only secretly tightened her grip on the hilt of her sword. After collecting the golden treasure chest that Ricardo dropped, Li Shi immediately changed her target and went to kill the other thorn soldiers. With the death of their commander, the thorn soldiers' defeat became even more obvious. They scattered and fled, and some of the injured threw down their weapons and begged for mercy. After the battle, a count was made. There were more than 100 thorn soldiers who surrendered. Bai Xiaowen ordered, "Don't keep any prisoners. Dismiss them all." "Why, Dior?" Cecilia was a little confused. "These people are all well-trained elite soldiers. No matter how bad they are still young and able-bodied laborers. That alone is equivalent to a considerable amount of wealth. It's a pity to dismiss them like this. Bai Xiaowen pulled Cecilia to the side and whispered a few words into her ear. Cecilia's white ears turned red, but her eyes were filled with surprise. Your plan is really bold, but it's your style. I support you, Dior. Chapter 696. They dismissed the captives and cleaned up the battlefield. Bai Xiaowen ordered the knights under Cecilia to rest and reorganize. They had been engaged in intense battles for days and were mentally exhausted. They had charged down the mountain on their last breath. Now that the battle was over, they felt even more exhausted. After Cecilia gave the order, the knights finally heaved a sigh of relief. They didn't take off their armor and just lay down in groups of 3 to 5. Not long after, Qiao Rui and Han Su led the knights from Baishur and arrived at Cold Spring Valley. However, they didn't need to participate in the battle anymore. Bai Xiaowen had sent this group of knights as reinforcements because he wanted to leave a reserve team just in case. He wasn't sure about the fighting strength of the Iron Thorn army surrounding Cecilia. If they were stronger than he expected, these 30 elite knights, along with Qiao Rui and Han Su, would be able to turn the tide of the battle as a fresh force when the battle was at its peak. Of course, it would be best if the reserve team didn't play a role. During the long night, Bai Xiaowen and Cecilia talked softly, telling each other about what had happened in the past few months after they parted. Li Shi stepped away gracefully, giving the two of them some space to be alone. However, after circling around, Bai Xiaowen sensed Li Shi's location with his spiritual senses. He sneaked to a valley and hid to eavesdrop. Bai Xiaowen wanted to laugh, but he didn't dare to expose him. Cecilia wasn't a spiritual leader and couldn't sense Li Shi's location, so he just let her be. Dior, I thought I'd never see you again. Cecilia held Bai Xiaowen's face and kissed him. Bai Xiaowen was touched, but also a little embarrassed. He knew Li Shi was eavesdropping. This white rose from the north was as cold as an iceberg on the outside, but to her lover, she was as hot as a volcano. In fact, she had already guessed the relationship between Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi, but she didn't want to reveal it. Don't worry, Cecilia. Even if you die, I have a way to bring you back to life, Bai Xiaowen said. Cecilia was stunned. Save him? How is that possible? Bai Xiaowen smiled and took out the holy water of resurrection. This is something I got when I won a competition in my hometown. It's a little complicated, but you can think of it as a gift from the gods. This thing can give you a second chance at life. Cecilia looked at the bottle of glowing liquid. She was keenly aware of the surging vitality contained in it. Her eyes widened. This can really bring the dead back to life? It's amazing. Cecilia believed her almost immediately. She trusted Bai Xiaowen completely. Dior, you should keep this treasure for yourself. You will often encounter danger as you travel through the various planes. You need it more than I do, Cecilia said. Bai Xiaowen shook his head. This bottle of holy water has no effect on people like Charlotte and me. It can only be used on you. Cecilia found it hard to understand, but she nodded to show that she accepted this explanation. She said leisurely, I really don't know what your hometown is like. They actually use such a precious item as a prize for a competition. This thing is considered a rare item in my hometown. It's not common, Bai Xiaowen said with a smile. I was lucky to be able to get it. Then, Bai Xiaowen told her about his adventures in the various planes. Cecilia's eyes lit up as she listened. Roaming the different dimensions, adventuring in the various planes of existence. This kind of life is really rich and colorful. Cecilia sighed. I really want to go on an adventure with you. Bai Xiaowen's heart skipped a beat. That's not impossible. Do you have a way? Cecilia's eyes lit up. Bai Xiaowen narrowed his eyes and thought for 0.1 seconds. Then, he said, there is a way, but you'd better weigh the pros and cons of using this method. As he spoke, Bai Xiaowen took out the S+ grade item, strong follower contract. This is a follower contract. After you sign it, you will become my follower. From then on, you can follow me to explore the various planes of the spiritual realm. Bai Xiaowen said seriously. However, there is one thing you need to pay attention to. Although the follower contract is not strict, there is one basic point. After signing it, the follower's life and death are in the hands of the master of the contract. Cecilia was a little surprised. There was hesitation in her beautiful eyes. This is not a big deal. For you, even if I die, I will have no complaints. But this kind of contract is a master-servant contract. After signing it, I will become your servant. Although it is only a master-servant relationship in name, I still find it hard to accept. Bai Xiaowen nodded. This is the only way you can explore with me. No matter what, I will respect your decision. Cecilia thought for a moment and said, actually, White Stone City has everything for me. My family, friends, and subordinates are all there. Although I would like to see you often, I am a little reluctant to leave Whitestone Hill. Bai Xiaowen said with a smile, that's true. He had never intended to make Cecilia his follower. The reason he took out the contract was that Cecilia had asked for it, and Bai Xiaowen had given him this method. As the two of them talked, Cecilia finally felt tired and fell asleep on Bai Xiaowen's shoulder. Bai Xiaowen turned his head with difficulty and glanced at Li Shi. Li Shi, asterisk. Omega. Chi chi chi. Bai Xiaowen, underscore 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 underscore. When the sun rose, Cecilia's 100-man night regiment had finished resting. Bai Xiaowen reorganized the 2 night regiments and secretly set the marching destination, Black Rock City. 10 kilometers outside Black Rock City, at the foot of a mountain, in a dense forest. There was an infantry regiment with a total of 100 people hidden in the forest. This was the infantry regiment with shields that Bai Xiaowen had sent out in advance. They hurried and finally arrived at their destination at noon on the second day, the outskirts of Black Rock City. The night captain, Phil, was a careful person. He rode around and finally decided on this hidden terrain so that the enemy would not find them and ruin the Lord's plan. After setting up camp and resting in the forest, Phil looked towards the southeast where Cold Spring Valley was located and fell into deep thought. I wonder how Lady Cecilia is now. Captain Phil, what do you think? Phil, who was sitting under a coniferous tree, heard someone say the same thing at the same time as he thought of this. He was startled and looked up to see a strong man. He recognized this man as the captain of the 100-man infantry regiment with shields. His name was Anton and he was born as a miner. Anton was surprised by Phil's reaction. Did I say something wrong? Captain Phil. No, nothing. Phil exhaled and answered Anton's question. At this time, the battle in Cold Spring Valley should have started long ago. I just don't know the result of the battle. I really hope that the Lord can save Lady Cecilia. He definitely can. The Lord is good at creating miracles. I've seen with my own eyes that he has turned the impossible into reality many times, Anton said. Phil forced a smile. The reinforcement this time was too weak. Compared to the Ironthorn family's army of thousands, the number of soldiers from White Stone City was too small. It was uncertain whether they could save Cecilia. Chapter 697. Before the expedition, Bai Xiaowen and Phil had agreed on a rendezvous time. Now that the signal had been sent, it meant that Bai Xiaowen's archer squad had arrived. Phil and Anton hurried over and met at the foot of the mountain. Lady Cecilia. Phil knelt down on one knee in front of Cecilia's horse. Tears welled up in his eyes. It's great to see you safe and sound. Cecilia nodded. I've heard from Viscount Dior about the situation in White Stone City. You've fought hard and persevered until Dior arrived. You've lived up to the name of the White Stone City's knights. Now, put away your tears of weakness and take up your weapons. It's time to fight back against the invaders. Yes. The White Phoenix squad, Cecilia, Phil, Anton, and the other leaders of the army gathered around a round table that had been set up temporarily. There was a piece of parchment on the table. Black Rock City's defense is indeed weak. There are less than 1,000 soldiers in the city who can fight. It seems like most of the soldiers have been sent out to fight. Bai Xiaowen held a brush with one hand and drew a few strokes on the parchment to outline the layout of Black Rock City's defenses. He said slowly, "Of course, even with the current military strength of Black Rock City, it's still difficult for us to take it by force. After all, we have fewer people. So, for this battle, I plan to use a night attack to take down the city. The first group of elites will infiltrate the city and try to kill the important figures of the Ironthorn family. This will cause chaos in the city. Then, the infantry will attack the city under the cover of the archers." Bai Xiaowen could be considered to have experienced several sieges in the spiritual realm, and he had formed a relatively mature strategic system for this kind of special warfare. The tasks assigned to each person were in an orderly manner. "Who will lead the infiltrating elites?" Cecilia asked. "My teammates and I, of course." Bai Xiaowen smiled and looked at Xiao Rui, Li Shuyi, and Han Su. The three nodded without any objections. "I'll go too," Cecilia said without hesitation. Bai Xiaowen shook his head. "The elite infiltration is only one part of the strategy. The outside support is also the key. You have to lead Phil, Anton, and the others and command the attack after the signal is sent." Cecilia came to her senses and stopped insisting. "I have a question." Xiao Rui raised his hand and said, "Now that the enemy has failed to attack Whitestone City and suffered a defeat in the Cold Spring Valley, will some of the defeated soldiers escape back to Black Rock City and report the news, causing Black Rock City to be on guard?" Bai Xiaowen nodded and said, "This concern is very reasonable. However, we cannot give up on our plan just because the other party is prepared for it. We must take down Black Rock City in one fell swoop within the remaining 5 days and completely occupy the human settlements in the northern lands. Otherwise, the consequences will be endless." Qiao Rui nodded silently. Bai Xiaowen heaved a sigh of relief and said, "Actually, the enemy may not have expected us to reach Black Rock City so quickly. After the 2 battles at Whitestone City and the Cold Spring Valley, we did not waste too much time and immediately set off. The defeated soldiers from the 2 battlefields fled to Black Rock City and let the Ironthorn family know of their defeat. At most, a few hours have passed. They may not have the ability to adapt so quickly." After a pause, Bai Xiaowen said, "Don't worry. Even if the other party adapts, we have nothing to fear." Qiao Rui nodded knowingly. With the current strength of the White Phoenix team, it was not difficult to attack a local noble. Moreover, they had a group of loyal soldiers and a strong leader like Cecilia to help them. If they really could not do it, they could flip the table and drag the Black Knight leader Gloria over. They could turn Black Rock City into a silent hell in minutes. After the discussion, the White Stone Army rested and reorganized until nightfall. The 4 members of the White Phoenix team silently made their way to Black Rock City. Black Rock City was completely silent. The guards were lazing around and there was not a single trace of tension in the atmosphere. "Looks like the other party has not noticed us yet," Han Su said in a low voice in the team channel. Bai Xiaowen shook his head. "No, this is not normal. Inform Cecilia to prepare for a strong attack." Han Su suddenly realized. Yes, it is not normal. He bent down and crept behind them under the cover of the night. Bai Xiaowen took a deep breath and controlled the shadow assassin to sneak behind a guard. Then, he took out his gun and aimed at the second guard. In the Cane realm, not only did the Desert Eagle look like a magic crossbow, even the sound of the gunshot was as low as the sound of a crossbow cutting through the air. There was no need to worry about the gunshot alerting the enemy. Of course, to Bai Xiaowen and the others, it was just the sound of a normal gunshot with a silencer. The 2 guards fell to the ground at almost the same time. They were killed instantly. Bai Xiaowen and the other 2 climbed up the city gate and quickly crossed the hanging door. They landed lightly. Beep, an ear-piercing alarm rang through the night sky. Balls of gentle light rose up, illuminating the area where Bai Xiaowen and the other 2 were standing as if it was daytime. Magic alarm and illumination spell. Bai Xiaowen immediately understood. The other party set up the magic alarm. They must have guessed that we would sneak in, Qiao Rui said. Oh, the sneak attack failed, Li Shi muttered and removed his night suit. Then let's fight head-on. Just as the three of them were talking, two teams of archers stood behind the bunker. Their bowstrings were fully drawn and aimed at the three members of the White Phoenix team. Welcome, cold-blooded demon of the north, Whitestone Lord Dior C. Kale, Viscount Bloom. A polite middle-aged man's voice sounded. With the help of the illumination spell, Bai Xiaowen could see the speaker's face clearly. He had white hair and was wearing a noble's military uniform. He looked similar to Baron Stantine. Who are you? Introduce yourself. Bai Xiaowen was not in a hurry. The middle-aged man smiled and said, Viscount Dior is really brave. No wonder you are a warrior who made great contributions in the war against the survivors. My name is Kegel Stantine, the current head of the Ironthorn family. Viscount Dior, what are your intentions for visiting us so late at night? If I say that I'm here for a visit, to revisit an old place, would you believe me? Bai Xiaowen talked nonsense with Kegel. Haha, Viscount Dior is really funny. Can't you see that as long as I give the order, you will be shot into a hedgehog by my archers? Kegel Stantine said with a smile. Or, can we make a deal? Let's hear it. Chapter 698. Bai Xiaowen smiled as if he was looking at an idiot. Seeing that Bai Xiaowen actually laughed, the Ironthorn family's master Cager was impressed by Bai Xiaowen's self-restraint. The so-called nobles were creatures that smiled in front of others but cursed behind their backs. They were creatures that spoke of benevolence and virtue. Of course, Cager did not know the meaning of He in Earth. He wanted to provoke Bai Xiaowen, but when he saw that Bai Xiaowen seemed to be able to keep his composure, he decided not to say anything else. Archers. Cager raised his hand high. Wait. Bai Xiaowen waved his hand. Cager smiled proudly. It felt good to see Dior's Kale Bloom begging for mercy. However, Bai Xiaowen's next sentence made him frown. Bai Xiaowen said, Your son. I mean Baron Stantine, is in my hands. Don't you know? Behind Cager, a person covered in a black robe said something in a low voice. Cager nodded. Humph. I have 3 sons. Even if one of them dies, I still have 2. I can have more if I lose my son, but if I miss this opportunity to expand the Ironthorn family's influence, I will be the sinner of the family. Dior's Kale Bloom, I have already decided to kill you. So vicious. Bai Xiaowen clicked his tongue inside. He wanted to keep Baron Stantine alive to cause trouble, but it seemed that he had failed. Archers. Shoot them. Cager waved his hand and stopped talking to Bai Xiaowen. Rustle. Rustle. Arrows pierced through the air. Boom. A huge butcher descended from the sky and blocked Bai Xiaowen and the other 2. The butcher's huge body was enough to block Bai Xiaowen and the other 2. The only pity was that the archers were outside of the butcher's range and could not use the corrosive poison. The butcher took 100% of the damage from the enemy's long-range attacks and could only rely on his high HP and damage reduction. The good news was that the butcher's HP was high enough, so this wave of arrows was not a problem. The White Phoenix team would not be passive. Qiao Rui blew the broken note and launched a ranged attack. Li Shi unsheathed her twin swords and activated Demon Lord's Wrath. She dashed toward Qiao Rui, leaving behind a long shadow. Her target was none other than Ironthorn Viscount Cager, who was protecting the workers. Bai Xiaowen didn't aim at Cager, but at the figure covered in a black robe behind him. This black-robed man was intentionally hiding, but he did not know that under Bai Xiaowen's Eye of Evolution, his secrets could not be hidden at all. Fisher, Leader Level 7, Race, Undead/Bone, Class, Lich, Attributes, Strength 18, Agility 22, Constitution 40, Spirit 77, Skill 1, Withering Mist, Skill 2, Corrosion. Fisher casts a curse on a single target, causing the target to suffer periodic shadow damage, magic damage. Skill 3, teleportation. Fisher casts a teleportation spell on a target, regardless of whether it is a living being, that is not heavier than 77 unit kg, causing the target to move a maximum of 770 unit meter. Fisher can cast this spell on himself. Skill 4, Undead Frenzy. Fisher activates the hatred of friendly undead creatures, increasing their damage to living enemies by 20%. When affected by Undead Frenzy, friendly undead creatures will have their attack speed and movement speed increased by 20% if there are living enemies in melee range. Skill 5, Plague Spreader LV2. Increase HP by 400 and gain 40% toughness. From this Lich Fisher, Bai Xiaowen could tell that the change in Black Rock City was not as simple as it seemed. He used insight on the Ironthorn family's master, Cager Stantine, mainly to check if this family's master had a percentage of undead status. It turned out that Cager Constantine was a human being in the standard sense of the word. Bai Xiaowen could not be bothered to find out what was going on. He fired his gun and decided to attack first. Lich Fisher did not expect Bai Xiaowen to choose him as the first target. For a moment, the Lich's heart was filled with grievances. He had already tried his best to reduce his presence. Why was he still the first target? He took Bai Xiaowen's shot head-on. Fortunately, it did not trigger a critical hit. Even so, Fisher still took the true damage from Bloodlust. This shot had taken away more than 150 HP from him. Lich Fisher, who had long lost his sense of pain, was also frightened by this frightening lethality. Archers, fire! Fire! The head of the Ironthorn family, Cager, shouted loudly. However, Li Shi was like a gust of wind. When the first wave of arrows had just passed and the archers were drawing their bows, she had already rushed to the front of the defensive fortifications. She pressed her hand down and gracefully flipped over the obstacles in the air. With 2 slashes, she killed an archer in front of her and headed straight for Cager himself. Li Shi's speed was extremely fast. It even gave people the illusion that she was teleporting. Cager roared and raised a gray crystal high in the air. Be trampled into dregs by my twin-headed giant. The surface of the gray crystal was covered with shining magic patterns. Then, with a crackling sound, a 5-meter-tall monster appeared in front of Li Shi. Other than having 2 slightly uncoordinated heads, this monster looked like an enlarged version of a human. It carried a huge club and saliva dripped from its 2 mouths. I saw lunch. No, it's dinner. The 2 heads argued with each other. Of course, this was not the main point. The twin-headed giant moved quickly and grabbed at Li Shi with its fan-like hands. Li Shi moved to the side with great agility and dodged this grab. However, an archer from the Ironthorn army was unfortunately grabbed by the giant hand. With a strong grip, the archer's bones cracked. The twin-headed giant opened its mouth and prepared to bite this unlucky fellow. It was really unscrupulous and would even eat its own allies. Fortunately, Cager was controlling it. Your food is over there. Cager pointed in the direction of Qiao Rui and Bai Xiaowen. Eat them. Lunch, dinner, as expected, the twin-headed giant changed its target. It abandoned the dying archer and strode toward Bai Xiaowen. Although it was walking, due to its large strides, it was faster than a normal person running. Leave this twin-headed giant to me. Big sister Qiao, we can begin, Bai Xiaowen said calmly. Qiao Rui nodded slightly. Then, she changed the tune and became gentle. She changed from the damage-type breaking scale to the control-type soul rhythm and began to reduce the enemy's attributes. Chapter 699. The butcher's body was spewing purplish-black poisonous gas as he collided with the 2-headed monster. The 2-headed monster's strength was originally higher than Butcher's, but under the double weakening, its strength value was no longer an advantage. When the huge wooden club came crashing down, Butcher waved his giant snake scepter and blocked it without any hesitation. The Butcher took a step back, then rushed forward again with a grunt. Bai Xiaowen was speechless. This was the first time he had seen a creature that could make the butcher suffer. However, the two-headed monster could not do much in front of him. With a command, the Wrathclaw, Shadow Assassin, Skeleton Warrior and other powerful summon creatures all rushed out and surrounded the two-headed monster. Delifa the Banshee flapped her wings and crossed the battlefield to the Lich Fisher, stabbing with her spiritual spear. The Lich Fisher was a spirit-type boss. Close combat was not his forte. In the blink of an eye, Delifa had stabbed his vital points repeatedly. Although his health points did not decrease quickly and he did not feel any pain, the feeling of being attacked without being able to fight back was extremely depressing. Fisher suddenly raised his hand and activated teleportation. His target was himself. In the next second, he appeared hundreds of meters away and pointed at Delifa. Despicable Banshee, I will let you know the price of offending Master Fisher. A ball of black skeleton energy flew out and targeted Delifa. Fisher's battle skill, Corrosion, was activated. Although Delifa was dodging, Fisher was a spirit-type boss with a high meditation ability. He could control the angle of the spell to a certain extent. The skeleton energy was about to hit Delifa. If it hit, Delifa's fragile body would probably be half crippled even if it did not die. After all, Fisher's spirit was as high as 77 points. However, Bai Xiaowen raised his hand and pointed. Just as the black skeleton energy was about to hit Delifa, a skeleton swordsman appeared. With a thud, the skeleton swordsman fell to the ground. Its bones began to peel off, and its health points were rapidly decreasing. This curse was very difficult to dispel. After being hit, one could only watch as their health points were emptied. It was extremely vicious. Thank you, Master. Delifa flashed a sweet smile at Bai Xiaowen. She twisted her hips and charged at Lich Fisher again. The winged Delifa could cover a distance of a few hundred meters in a matter of seconds. This time, the Lich Fisher had no way to deal with it. He could only yell, "Karkle! Come and help me!" If he was a high-level leader, why couldn't he defeat a level 6 elite Delifa? The reason was very simple. Fisher was a very special spirit-type boss. From the information about his skills, his main ability was to fight in an army. Whether it was Withering Mist or Undead Frenzy, they could play a terrifying role in large-scale battles. However, one-on-one battles were too difficult. Fisher's only spell that could threaten Delifa was Corrosion. After Bai Xiaowen's skeleton swordsman successfully blocked it, Fisher naturally lost his ability to threaten Delifa. He was beaten up badly by Delifa, who specialized in close combat. Viscount Karkle held a string of beads in his hand and chanted a spell loudly. The black beads glowed and turned into two black things that were only half the height of a human. They charged at Lich Fisher. Bai Xiaowen could clearly see that the two black things were two puppets. From their appearance, they looked a little like the dwarves mentioned in the information Bai Xiaowen had collected. However, their dark skin and crisscrossing blue energy veins made them very different from the dwarves. After using Insight, Bai Xiaowen found out that these two things were called Rune Dwarf puppets. It turned out that Viscount Kagerstantine, the current patriarch of the Ironthorn family, was a summoner class that leaned towards puppets. Moreover, he was definitely not weak. Just this two-headed monster alone was not inferior to the butcher, not to mention that he also had a bunch of Rune Dwarf puppets. However, Li Shi had already closed in on Karkle. His two swords whistled as they pierced out. With two clangs, two more Rune Dwarf puppets appeared in front of Karkle and helped him block the two attacks. The sound of footsteps rang out. Groups of well-prepared Ironthorn army soldiers came out from different streets and joined the battle. After all, the Ironthorn family had come prepared. With these soldiers joining the battle, Bai Xiaowen's side was instantly at a disadvantage. However, at the same time, the sharp whistling of arrows piercing through the air sounded continuously. Heavy sounds of impact could also be heard from the city gate. Cecilia, who was waiting outside, saw that the situation was not right and immediately ordered the Whitestone army to launch a strong attack. Karkle had no choice but to split up his troops to guard the city gate, reducing the pressure on the White Phoenix team. Under the protection of a group of Ironthorn soldiers, Lich Fisher finally managed to escape from Delpha's pursuit. At this moment, his HP had already been reduced by half. He was fuming with anger, if he still had any. Foolish humans. You have completely angered me. Witness my power. Fisher shouted loudly. He raised his bony claws and quickly made a casting motion. Withered Fog was cast. However, Bai Xiaowen keenly noticed that when they saw the bone claw on Fisher's black sleeve, many of the Ironthorn army soldiers who were guarding him took a step back. Their expressions were that of shock, fear, confusion, and so on. These emotions of shock and fear were not seen by Bai Xiaowen's naked eyes. Instead, they were within the range of his mental strength. He was able to grasp and sense the emotions of others. With the Butcher as the vanguard, line up and charge. The radius of the Withered Fog is only a few hundred meters. We just need to charge out, Bai Xiaowen commanded in a deep voice. The Withered Fog skill seemed very powerful, but it actually had a huge weakness. It was an area of effect skill that did not have any control effects. The enemy could directly charge out of the Withered Fog's range, and the Withered Fog on them would naturally be cleared. Therefore, when using it, it was best to use it with a large area of effect to slow down the enemy and make them stay as long as possible within the Withered Fog's range. Or, like Bai Xiaowen had done before, using this skill on a group of divine colossuses without intelligence in an enclosed underground space. This would reduce all of the enemy's attributes by 50% until the Withered Fog's duration ended. At that time, the effect would be maximized. Karkle obviously knew this as well. He immediately ordered the Ironthorn soldiers and archers to surround Bai Xiaowen's group and form a defensive line to prevent them from charging out. However, with the Butcher as the vanguard and the Withered Fog to reduce the enemy's defense, Bai Xiaowen's group went all out. The Ironthorn soldiers could not resist at all. Bai Xiaowen's group charged out of the Withered Fog's range like a stream of iron, and the Withered Fog's range was cleared. Chapter 700. However, Kager was still confident that he could take down Bai Xiaowen's forces. After all, Black Rock City was his home ground. There were more than 100 Ironthorn soldiers on the battlefield, and there were still reinforcements coming in. As for Bai Xiaowen's reinforcements, they were blocked by the high walls and could not break in at all. Destroy them. Dead or alive. Kager ordered the Ironthorn soldiers. At the same time, he controlled the Rune Dwarf puppets and two-headed monsters to chase after them. Bai Xiaowen ordered his forces to retreat as they fought, leaving the area of the Withering Mist. However, this meant that they were getting further and further away from the city gate, which was exactly what Kager Stantine wanted. More and more reinforcements arrived from the city. They had already formed an encirclement around Bai Xiaowen's side. Dior Kale Bloom. Today, Black Rock City will be your burial ground. Kager Stantine laughed loudly. Hero of the War of the Survivors, cold-blooded demon of the Northern Lands, he still lost to him. The corner of Bai Xiaowen's lips curled up, revealing a sarcastic smile. Asterisk crackle. Asterisk a bolt of lightning streaked across the night sky. The necromancer's lightning strike accurately hit Lich Fisher, who was wearing a black cloak. Almost at the same time, Butcher threw out his chain and wrapped it around Lich Fisher's thigh, dragging him over. In an instant, Bai Xiaowen's party focused their attacks on Fisher. Although the latter had a long HP bar, as a high chieftain, he was still hit hard by the wave of attacks, his HP dropping rapidly. Kager immediately ordered reinforcements, but he was delayed by Butcher who had activated Rotten. He could only watch as Fisher was beaten up. Damn it. Servants. Protect your master. Fisher roared loudly. Kager's expression changed drastically when he heard this. He shouted angrily, Fisher, what are you doing? Fisher completely ignored Kager's question. His Lich's powerful mental strength spread out, and the houses in the surrounding residential area started to shake. The zombie-like residents of Black Rock City staggered out of their houses. Undead plague. Seeing this, the expressions of the soldiers of Black Rock City changed. A year ago, the tragic scene of the undead plague attacking the city was still fresh in their minds. Of course, the living in the Northlands would not forget that nightmarish memory. The appearance of the undead of pestilence had undoubtedly torn open the most painful wound in their hearts, causing them to bleed profusely. Bai Xiaowen laughed and said in the party channel, "I wanted to kill this lich before revealing his identity, but he couldn't hold himself back and summon the undead of pestilence. That's much simpler." Bai Xiaowen raised his voice and shouted, "The Ironthorn family has colluded with the Sin realm and betrayed the human race. They conspired to turn all the humans in Blackrock City into plague undead. I am Whitestone Overlord Dior C. Calebloom. I am under the orders of Prince Nicholas to capture the Ironthorn family and purge Blackrock City. Those who don't know can put down their weapons, and I promise not to pursue the matter. Soldiers of Blackrock City, think about it carefully. Do you want to remain loyal to the Ironthorn family and watch them turn your family members into undead?" The soldiers of the Ironthorn army were hesitant. Although most of them were loyal to the Ironthorn family, what they saw with their own eyes was too convincing. Seeing that the situation was not good, Cager shouted, "Don't believe his nonsense. Have you forgotten his title? The cold-blooded demon of the Northlands. In order to plot against Blackrock City, he will fabricate any lies. Once you put down your weapons, you and your family members will become lambs to the slaughter. Do you expect a cold-blooded demon to be merciful?" While they were talking, the battle continued. However, the pressure on Bai Xiaowen's side was greatly reduced. Only Cager's two-headed troll and the rune dwarf puppet were still fighting. However, the situation had changed and they were being beaten up. Kaboom! Bai Xiaowen's critical strike took away the last bit of the two-headed monster's HP, causing it to fall to the ground with its back facing the sky. Bai Xiaowen stepped on the corpse of the two-headed troll and stood on top of it. He said in a deep voice, "That's right, I am the cold-blooded demon of the Northlands. I have killed countless undead of pestilence and infected people. The corpses of the survivors of the sinful realm that I have killed can cover Blackrock City. However, I have done all this to protect the rights of the humans of the Northlands. I want to protect your families and prevent them from turning into these abominable monsters." The roars of the undead of pestilence were the background noise and it was especially appropriate. Now, the pestilence has infiltrated Blackrock City again. Who knows how many people have been infected by the pestilence of the undead, including your parents, wives, and children. Only I, the Lord of White Rock City, have the ability to save everyone. Bai Xiaowen said in a deep voice, "A year ago, I saved Blackrock City. Now, I will save this city that has been plagued by disasters once again. All human soldiers, if you still think that you are human, if you still want to reunite with your parents, wives, and children, if you don't want this city to be filled with monsters like these, stop resisting. Or point your weapons at the main culprit, the sinner who colluded with the survivors of the sinful realm, Cager Stantine." Bai Xiaowen's speech had a strong appeal, which was also the effect of his high charm. The soldiers of the Ironthorn family hesitated. Some of them put down their weapons, while others turned around and looked at their former patriarch with complicated eyes. Cager Stantine was extremely frustrated. He could not help but complain about his useless teammate, Lich Fisher. Initially, he had planned to wait until all the humans in Blackrock City were infected with the undead plague virus. Then, he would unleash the virus all at once, turning the entire Blackrock City into a kingdom of the plague undead. However, everything was now F***king over. What are you waiting for? Listen to your lord's orders and kill Dior C. Calebloom. Cager yelled. However, what answered him was the sound of more and more weapons falling to the ground. There were many deserters among the soldiers of Blackrock City. Many of the deserters had a simple thought. They wanted to go home as soon as possible. Lich Fisher said darkly, "It's too late. All living beings must die." He activated Undead Frenzy. Instantly, the eyes of all the pestilence undead flickered with a bloodthirsty red glow, and their movement speed increased greatly. They rushed towards the nearest living being. The situation became extremely chaotic. It had turned into a situation whereby Xiaowen and the soldiers of Black Rock City were fighting against the pestilence undead together. I made a mistake. I didn't bring the ultimate pestilence bane. But even if I did, I wouldn't want to use it. Judging from the density of the pestilence undead, Black Rock City can still be saved. As long as there is a chance, I don't want to only have a dead city. Bai Xiaowen calculated in his mind. He immediately controlled the Wrath Claw to activate Howl. At the same time, the commander's cloak on his back vibrated and activated Commanding Roar. In an instant, the attack power and attack speed of all his allies were increased. Commanding Roar also increased the damage and reduced the damage received. Lich Fisher had finally reached the cooldown of his second corrosive spell. He raised his hand and cast the spell on Bai Xiaowen. Bai Xiaowen snorted and chose to take the attack head-on. His HP decreased bit by bit, but the rate of decrease was very stable. With the Wrath Claw's life sharing, Bai Xiaowen was essentially a tank with 600 to 700 HP. The summoned creatures surrounded him. Fisher's teleportation spell had also finished its cooldown. He waved his bone claw and was about to teleport. However, a bolt of lightning struck, interrupting Fisher's spellcasting. The Wrath Claw howled and pounced on him. It pressed him to the ground and used its ultimate skill to suppress him. Then, a rain of attacks fell on him. The remaining half of Lich Fisher's HP fell to 0 before it could last through the duration of the suppression. The last trace he left in this world was a golden treasure chest. With Fisher's death, the pestilence undead lost their unified command and became chaotic. Bai Xiaowen took the opportunity to order the soldiers of the Ironthorn army who were fighting against the pestilence undead. They had lost their backbone to form up and encircle the pestilence undead. These soldiers were in a state of confusion. They accepted Bai Xiaowen's order without much hesitation. Kager Constantine was furious, but there was nothing he could do. Bang, bang. Outside the city, under the perseverance of the shield-wielding infantrymen of the Whitestone army, the tall city gate was suddenly opened. The valiant female knight Cecilia in white armor led the army into Black Rock City. On the horse, Cecilia knocked an arrow and aimed at Kager Constantine. A ray of light slowly flowed on the arrow. Kager Constantine felt the threat of death, like an animal that was targeted by its natural enemy. He glanced at Cecilia and hurriedly ordered a rune dwarf puppet to block in front of him. Whoosh! Buzz! The ray of light shot out at a speed faster than the speed of sound. After the arrow hit its target, the shrill sound of the arrow breaking through the air and the dull sound of the bowstring vibrating could be heard. After shooting the arrow, Cecilia was slightly out of breath and paused for a second. The arrow directly pierced through the rune dwarf puppet like a heavy javelin. The rune dwarf puppet was sent flying and crashed into a house, causing smoke and dust to rise. The rune dwarf puppet did not appear again. Without a doubt, it was killed in an instant. Kager Constantine was both shocked and furious. His main summoned creature, the two-headed monster, had already been killed by Bai Xiaowen. His rune dwarf puppets had also fallen one by one. He did not have the slightest intention of staying when he encountered a strong enemy like Cecilia. He turned and fled without hesitation. Swoosh! Swoosh! Two skeletal sword-wielding soldiers blocked in front of Kager Constantine. Duong Duong attacked with their shields twice. Kager Constantine staggered back. At this moment, Cecilia's follow-up attack arrived. Cecilia did not use the terrifying first arrow that required a charge up. Instead, she used the rapid arrow skill. The arrows were almost connected head to tail, and 3 arrows were shot consecutively. Thud! 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 The 3 arrows accurately hit their targets. Kager Constantine was in great pain, and his health points decreased drastically. After the 3 consecutive arrows, Cecilia took a deep breath and used the charged-up arrow again. The ray of light shot out and nailed Kager Constantine to the wall of a stone house, causing cracks to appear all over his body. Cecilia rode her horse and arrived in front of Kager Constantine. You detained my merchant group, tricked me into coming here for a negotiation, ambushed me halfway, and sent troops to attack my city, you despicable person. You started the war. Now, it's time for you to swallow the bitter fruit of war. Kager Constantine was shot onto the wall. Blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth, but he revealed a mocking expression. Even if I didn't start the war, Black Rock City would have been annexed by you sooner or later. Cough cough. The victor represents justice. Do it. Cecilia snorted and pulled out her silver bow. With a flick of her wrist, the bowstring broke Kager Constantine's throat. With the death of the Ironthorn family's leader, the situation was quickly brought under control. Lich Fisher's mental strength had a limited range, and he could only awaken a few hundred infected humans. The battle lasted for 15 minutes, and the undead of Pestilence were all eliminated. Bai Xiaowen then ordered the city gates to be sealed. He carried the head of the Ironthorn family's leader, Lich Fisher, and the corpses of the undead of Pestilence to the Lord's mansion. Along the way, he encountered soldiers from the Ironthorn family. Bai Xiaowen directly took out these few pieces of evidence, and with a series of verbal attacks, he disintegrated their resistance without shedding a drop of blood. He easily arrived at the Lord's mansion. In the Lord's mansion, Bai Xiaowen finally met with a decent resistance. The nobles of the Ironthorn family mobilized the last of their family's private soldiers to build fortifications and guard the entrance of the Lord's mansion. However, under the powerful individual strength of Bai Xiaowen's side, the battle quickly ended. When the nobles of the Ironthorn family saw that the situation was hopeless, most of them chose to surrender. Only a few stubborn ones stubbornly resisted until the end, and were eliminated one by one. At dawn, Bai Xiaowen's side had basically gained control of Black Rock City. The citizens of Black Rock City were uneasy as they welcomed a new day. Many people felt that it was unbelievable. The family name that ruled Black Rock City had changed the moment they woke up. It was like a dream. Of course, the noises and sounds of battle did not stop that night. Almost none of the citizens of Black Rock City slept well. Bai Xiaowen ordered the citizens to gather in the plaza in front of the Lord's mansion, and forced every household to have someone present. What happened next was simple. Bai Xiaowen exposed the conspiracy of the Sin Realm survivors in front of everyone. All the nobles of the Ironthorn family were accused of colluding with the Sin Realm survivors and plotting to murder the citizens of Black Rock City. They were sentenced to death by hanging. Although some of the nobles of the Ironthorn family did not know, Bai Xiaowen did not care. In order to prevent the Ironthorn family from rising from the ashes, it was better to hang them all. Although the citizens of Black Rock City were hesitant, the evidence was in front of them. In addition, Bai Xiaowen's reputation of fighting against the Sin Realm coalition and eliminating the undead pestilence a year ago was too great. Most of them chose to believe him. This was one of the benefits of being famous in the spiritual realm. Chapter 701. Bai Xiaowen then used the excuse of searching for the remnants of the plague spreaders to conduct a search in Black Rock City. At the same time, he encouraged the citizens of Black Rock City to clear out the secret strongholds of the Ironthorn family that were usually heavily guarded. The operation this time had indeed uprooted quite a few elite plague spreaders. These people were trash compared to the Lich Fisher. Bai Xiaowen didn't even need to do anything. Han Su and a few Bao Knights from the Whitestone army were enough to deal with them. These elites were also a good harvest for Han Su. After going through 2 battles, his experience bar had risen to level 6, and his strength had increased. However, Bai Xiaowen's main purpose of searching the city wasn't to find the plague spreaders, but to clear out the hidden resources and wealth of the Ironthorn family. Although they found a considerable amount of gold and jewels in the Lord's manor, Bai Xiaowen didn't think that these things could represent the entire wealth of the Ironthorn family. After all, this was a noble family with hundreds of years of history. As expected, in the secret strongholds of the Ironthorn family, Bai Xiaowen found a large amount of gold, weapons, and armor. It was a great harvest. The wealth of the Ironthorn family was more than 10 times that of White Rock City. This time, after swallowing up the wealth of the Ironthorn family, White Rock City could finally get rid of its poverty. In the Lord's manor. Actually, the most important wealth of the Ironthorn family isn't the gold and jewels, but Black Rock City. To be exact, it's the tens of thousands of people in Black Rock City. Bai Xiaowen said in a low voice, many of the citizens of Black Rock City have a skill, and they are professionals that White Rock City urgently needs. Perhaps the northern lands are dangerous and can't keep those top-notch professionals, but there should still be a few high-level talents. Only by keeping these talents will we be able to digest the fruits of this battle. Qiao Rui said, currently, Black Rock City is in a state of lockdown. The citizens can't escape for the time being. However, sealing the city is only a temporary measure. If we can't pacify the people quickly, once the city gate is removed or we leave Kane, the senior professionals of Black Rock City will still escape. Cecilia said softly, Dior, I need to remind you that we are illegally occupying Black Rock City. This situation will not last long and will definitely attract the Empire's interference. Bai Xiaowen replied, I understand that as well. However, the Empire is currently embroiled in internal strife, and the entire central province is in a state of chaos. We have no time to deal with the changes in the north for now. After a pause, Bai Xiaowen continued. Of course, we need to prepare for both eventualities. I will write a letter to Prince Nicholas, stating that Black Rock City has been infiltrated by the undead plague once again, and request for temporary authority over Black Rock City. If you write a letter to Prince Nicholas, you'll be joining the prince's war chariot and going against his uncle, Cecilia said. Bai Xiaowen nodded. We have no other choice. Originally, Prince Nicholas was the one who pushed for White Rock City's fief, and because of this, he suffered a lot of criticism. Even if we don't express our stance, we will still be regarded as part of the prince's faction. Of course, even if we express our support for the prince, the north does not have the strength to support the central province's battle, so we won't get involved in this mess. Bai Xiaowen knew his own situation well. He could not leave the north for the central province, and time did not allow for it. Otherwise, this would be an excellent opportunity. Do you think the prince will agree to put Black Rock City under your jurisdiction? Cecilia asked. Bai Xiaowen said, it's probably impossible for the fief to be permanent, but it's definitely not a problem to have temporary authority over it. The prince himself is already unable to deal with the matters of the north. Qiao Rui frowned slightly. If that's the case, even if we stabilize the hearts of the people in Black Rock City and maintain the prosperity of this city, it won't fall into our hands in the end. It'll all be for naught. Bai Xiaowen said with a smile, that's why we still need to formulate a series of measures. In this limited time, we need to draw out as much of Black Rock City's accumulated resources as possible and transfuse them to White Rock City. The most important thing is to urge the people of Black Rock City to move to White Rock City. Move? Unless it's a matter of life and death, most people in the north are not willing to leave their homes. Back then, Black Rock Stronghold was a bridgehead against the Sin domain and was very dangerous, but most of the people did not move. Forcing them to move is not only time-consuming and laborious, but it's also easy to provoke the people's resistance. Cecilia was afraid that Bai Xiaowen would use force, so she tried to dissuade him. Bai Xiaowen said, this will require us to use some ingenious methods. Whoosh, whoosh. Everyone in the hall looked at Bai Xiaowen. Soon, the new lord gave a reply to the issue that the people of Black Rock City were most concerned about, the undead plague virus infection. Almost all of the residents had to fill in a form to register. On the form, they had to write down their professions, specialties, and other personal information. Then, they had to undergo a compulsory quarantine. Those who were found to be potentially infected were brought to the quarantine area. It was worth mentioning that those who had been in the profession for more than 10 or 20 years, such as high-grade blacksmiths, high-grade jewelers, high-grade apothecaries, and high-grade magic apprentices, were all found to be seriously infected with the undead plague virus. Some of the high-grade people with secondary professions were not infected, but their family members were found to be infected. After the quarantine results came out, the panic-stricken people of Black Rock City cursed the previous lord, Kager Stantine, for being a shameless bastard, while waiting for the rescue medicine from White Rock City, the Plague Bane. A day later, the first batch of the Plague Bane arrived, but the price was set to be frighteningly high. One vial of the Plague Bane medicine cost 10 gold coins. What kind of concept was this? A skilled craftsman could work hard for a month, and when business was good, he could only earn about 10 gold coins. More importantly, the Plague Bane was not an effective medicine. The treatment process posted by the officials was very clear. It required 3 continuous courses of treatment to completely remove the undead plague virus. 3 courses of treatment would take 21 days. Most of the craftsmen could not afford this amount of money. The tax burden of Black Rock City was not light. The craftsmen worked hard for a year, but they could not save much gold coins. Sometimes, they would even run out of money. Fortunately, the new lord gave everyone a way to survive. The price of the Plague Bane in Black Rock City was high, but this was the public price. If the residents of White Rock City bought the Plague Bane, they could enjoy the internal price discount, only a few silver coins per vial. Many people began to inquire about how to become a resident of White Rock City. The officials quickly posted a notice, giving 2 options. First, residents of Black Rock City could apply to join White Rock City. The application was not guaranteed to pass, and it required a qualification check. Only those who were skilled in a particular profession were qualified to become a resident of White Rock City. The total number of people who passed was limited, and it was first come, first serve. Those who were late would not have the chance. When the quota was full, the White Rock Army would escort the new residents to White Rock City. They would have new houses, furniture, and other items distributed by White Rock City. They would also be assigned jobs, and at the same time, they could enjoy the privilege to buy the Plague Bane at a discounted price. The second option was for those who did not have the means to pass the qualification check. These mediocre residents with no skills could apply to join White Rock City as refugees. The White Rock Army would form a refugee phalanx and guide these residents to successfully reach White Rock City. However, as refugees, they were not qualified to be allocated housing, furniture, or jobs. But they could still buy the Plague Bane at a discounted price. After the notice was posted, the temporary White Rock City household registration office set up by Bai Xiaowen was immediately overcrowded. Many families took turns queuing at the registration office, hoping to pass the qualification check and move to White Rock City. Xiaowen is still the best. Li Shi sighed when he saw the grand scene at the registration office. I was at the registration office just now and flipped through the application forms. Most of the professionals who applied were mid-level talents. Those who were truly skilled are still observing. Qiao Rui said. Bai Xiaowen said, that's normal. Skilled craftsmen usually earn more than mid-level talents. It's not that they can't afford the treatment fee of more than 200 gold coins. It's just that it will empty their savings, which is quite painful. Also, most of these people are a little arrogant. They think that with their abilities, as long as they apply, they will definitely pass the qualification check, so there's no rush. Then what should we do? Our time here is limited. Li Shi said. Actually, I already have a plan. Those skilled craftsmen will not be able to sit still unless they are determined to stay in Black Rock City. Bai Xiaowen said with a smile. That afternoon, a new notice was posted on the notice board, announcing the number of people who passed the qualification check on the first day. A total of 321 people passed the check. Currently, there were still 179 people left. The quota for White Rock City's residents was unexpectedly popular. This time, the entire city was in an uproar. The mid-level craftsmen who passed the check secretly rejoiced. Those skilled craftsmen who did not want to go at the beginning panicked a little. Even after the registration office closed that night, the craftsmen and their family members who were waiting in line did not leave. They continued to stay up late and line up. The White Rock Army had no choice but to send people to maintain order. Those who cut the line and caused trouble were all arrested and sent to the Black Rock City's prison. Actually, their crimes were not serious enough to warrant jail time. However, this was a special time. Bai Xiaowen had to use severe punishment to maintain the fragile order in Black Rock City. The next day. Xiaowen, they're here, they're here. Look, this morning, the registration office added the information of 27 skilled craftsmen. Li Shi's eyes sparkled. Finally, they can't hold it in anymore. Bai Xiaowen said with a smile. What should we do? Should we open a back door for these people? Li Shi asked. White Rock City did not have any skilled craftsmen. They were definitely thirsty for them. Bai Xiaowen shook his head. No need. Then what if the quota is used up? Li Shi asked. Qiao Rui covered his mouth and laughed. Don't worry. Isn't it up to the captain to decide if the quota is used up? It's right not to open a back door for those people. We have to kill their arrogance. If they don't work hard in White Rock City, it'll be difficult to manage. At noon that day, a new notice was posted on the bulletin board. The 500 quota was full. In view of everyone's support and enthusiasm for White Rock City, the new Lord Dior C. Kale Bloom had granted another 300 extra quotas for White Rock City residents. All skilled craftsmen were welcome to submit their applications. Bai Xiaowen left Cecilia and most of the White Rock Army soldiers in Black Rock City to maintain order. He led the White Phoenix team and a small portion of the White Rock Army soldiers to escort the first batch of craftsmen to White Rock City. Behind them were 2 square arrays of refugees who seemed to be in a mess. Most of them were carrying their luggage, and they looked panicked and down. Compared to the 500 craftsmen in front of them who were assigned jobs and housing, the refugees' future was uncertain after they arrived at White Rock City. The 2 White Rock Army soldiers who were guiding the refugees patiently explained the White Rock Lord's low tax policy to the refugees. It was half as low as Black Rock City. As long as they worked hard, no one in White Rock City would starve to death. This was to calm the hearts of these refugees. After a day of marching, the White Phoenix team, craftsmen, and refugees arrived at White Rock City. Bai Xiaowen called the city guard, Tim, over. After instructing him clearly, he was in charge of settling these migrants. Tim did not see Cecilia. He did not even have time to ask Bai Xiaowen a lot of questions before Bai Xiaowen gave him such a huge task. His head was about to explode. However, there was nothing he could do. After all, the other party was the Lord and he was just a worker. The honest Tim could only work hard and diligently to arrange housing and jobs for these migrants. He was so busy that his feet did not even touch the ground. Bai Xiaowen, on the other hand, brought Li Shi and Qiao Rui into the zombie doctor's underground research institute. The zombie doctor was holding a magnifying glass and observing a tube of green liquid. He was muttering something. Hi, doctor. Bai Xiaowen's voice sounded. The zombie doctor jumped in fright. The test tube of green liquid in his hand fell to the ground with a clatter. Instantly, green mist surged and turned his entire head green. Oh, no! Boss, save me, the zombie doctor's body swayed. The muscles on the surface of his body swelled abnormally. He was like a balloon that was constantly being injected with gas. His face also turned green with a tinge of red. What's wrong with you? How can I save you? Bai Xiaowen jumped in fright. The zombie doctor could not die so easily. It would be terrible if he lost key memories and became an idiot. Fortunately, the zombie doctor and Bai Xiaowen could communicate telepathically. Under the other party's telepathic cry for help, Bai Xiaowen quickly pulled open the drawer of the experiment table. He found a tube of red medicine and injected it into the zombie doctor. The zombie doctor's swollen body froze. Then, there was a long and loud fart. Following the sound of the fart, the zombie doctor's swollen body slowly shrunk. Finally, he shrunk back to his original size of a beansprout. The entire basement was filled with an unpleasant smell. Ugh! Chapter 702. Boss, thank you for saving me. But if I wasn't scared by you, I wouldn't have inhaled so much of the mutation potion. Zombie doctor muttered. Bai Xiaowen ignored his complaints and keenly grasped the gap in his words. Wait a minute. What did you just say? Mutation potion? Yes. Zombie doctor blinked his goldfish eyes. You can already make the mutation potion? Why didn't you tell me? Bai Xiaowen's eyes lit up. The distortion potion could readjust the user's attributes for a short period of time. For Bai Xiaowen, who was an all-rounder in all aspects of combat and could engage in both ranged and close combat, it was definitely a special item that was not inferior to an S-rank item. Back then, Bai Xiaowen had relied on the mutation potion to survive the Swallow University team's meteor spell and then gave Ouyang Heng a profound military training. Zombie doctor waved his hand. Boss, you misunderstood. This bottle of mutation potion is a defective product that I accidentally made when I was researching the flesh devourer's stomach pouch. First of all, it can't be mass-produced. Second, its effects aren't strong and it has serious side effects. If the user's physique isn't up to standard, they'll explode like just now. Fortunately, I didn't inhale too much and used a tranquilizer to get rid of the mutation symptoms in time. All right. Bai Xiaowen pursed his lips. He was happy for nothing. Maybe it was because he saw that Bai Xiaowen's gaze was a little unfriendly, but Zombie Doctor's desire to live rose. He hurriedly asked for credit. Boss, let's put the mutation potion aside and talk about this stomach pouch. It's really a magical organ. The digestive fluid it secretes can practically melt steel, and it also has a unique absorption mechanism. Bai Xiaowen interrupted Zombie Doctor. Let's put aside the overly technical stuff for now. Just answer me one question, is this thing useful to the butcher or not? Of course it is. If we do a small surgery and transplant it to the butcher will definitely be able to eat more. Zombie Doctor said solemnly. Being able to eat means that its digestive ability is strong. Well, if it absorbs well, it grows quickly. Zombie Doctor stammered. I don't want my summoned beast to turn into a good-for-nothing. Bai Xiaowen said unhappily. Originally, the butcher, as an undead species and a summoned creature of the corpse demon race, did not need to eat. In addition, the butcher's self-awareness was still at the level of a 3-year-old. Even the concept of appetite was not very clear. It could be considered a good and cheap fighting machine. Bai Xiaowen would vomit 3 liters of blood if he were to install this stomach pouch and turn Butcher into a glutton without increasing his strength. What could a foodie do? Butcher was so reckless that it was impossible for him to act cute. Don't worry, boss, the Butcher will become even stronger after transplanting this stomach. Zombie Doctor raised his hand and said, for the past 2 days, I've been studying how to eliminate the rejection reaction after an organ transplant. If the Butcher was a living being and this was just a normal stomach bag, I wouldn't have to worry about it. But because the Butcher is a spirit type and this stomach bag is very special, I spent a lot of extra time analyzing and calculating. Let's get started then, Bai Xiaowen said. Zombie Doctor was really good at taking advantage of every opportunity to claim credit. Perhaps it was because he was under too much pressure before. Soon, the Butcher was summoned. He scratched his big head with sparse hair and looked around in confusion. He probably did not understand why he was summoned when there was no battle. Especially when his master's first order was to lie down. All right, I've already given the Butcher the order not to resist. You can do as you wish. Bai Xiaowen waved his hand. In the basement, the smell of the gas released by Zombie Doctor had not yet dissipated. He was also a little tired. After leaving the Butcher behind, he quickly climbed out of the research institute and returned to the surface to get some fresh air. How is it? Li Shi and Qiao Rui asked. Zombie Doctor is doing it now. It will probably take a few hours. Bai Xiaowen hugged the back of his head with his arms and lay on Li Shi's lap without a care for his image as he looked at Qiao Rui. Li Shi's face was slightly red, but he ignored Bai Xiaowen and remained seated. Qiao Rui smiled and said, Captain, this territory of yours is really extraordinary. I heard from Junior that you can even transport supplies to Earth. This is really a treasure trove. I've never heard of any awakened owning a territory. Bai Xiaowen chuckled and said a few words of modesty. What an eye-opener. A deep male voice sounded. Not far away, Han Su walked over with a large shield on his back. When he first returned to Baishur City, he wanted to walk around and see if he could trigger some errand missions. Bai Xiaowen let him do as he pleased. How's your harvest? Bai Xiaowen got up from Li Shi's lap and asked with a smile. Han Su shook his head. The residents of Baishur City know that I'm a friend of the Lord, so they don't dare to give me any errand missions. I walked around for half a day and found nothing. Then let's enjoy this rare leisure time. Bai Xiaowen gestured for Han Su to sit down. Speaking of which, I've played some virtual reality games before. I always felt that they were a little unrealistic. Even though the main character had already become successful and saved the world, he still had to run all kinds of errand missions while completing his daily life, such as delivering letters, mining, and finding cats. Those NPCs are so careless to let a legendary hero look for cats. Tisk, if you look at it this way, the spirit realm is much more realistic than the game, Li Shi said. Old Han, don't be discouraged. These errand missions are trivial and boring, and the rewards are low. There's no value in doing them. The time spent in the spirit realm is precious. There will be earth-shattering things to do in the future, Bai Xiaowen said. This time, you experienced 2 large-scale battles and rose to level 6. It's not a waste of time. Shi, since everyone is here, take out the treasure chest and open it. Okay. Li Shi smiled and took out the treasure chest from his storage space. This time, they didn't obtain many treasure chests after entering Kane's territory through the fief order. With the strength of Bai Xiaowen's party, the chances of obtaining a treasure chest from killing an elite of the same level was very low. Furthermore, the leaders they encountered this time were only the Lich Fisher, the Ironthorn family's master Kager, and the army commander Ricardo. Kager had been killed by the enraged Cecilia. Fortunately, Bai Xiaowen had joined the battle and killed the 2-headed monster, the rune dwarf puppet, and other summoned creatures. He had contributed quite a lot to the battle and thus obtained a treasure chest. However, the evaluation was only D, so the loot had definitely decreased. Lich Fisher's battle evaluation was C, but fortunately, he didn't get a buy. Chapter 703. The White Phoenix team opened the treasure chest of the Ironthorn family's leader, Kager. Fortunately, they did not encounter the 1/3 chance of getting a free pass. They received a black sphere. Rune Dwarf Core, Grade A item. Summons an elite rune dwarf puppet to fight for you. The rune dwarf puppet has tempered skin, heavy punch, and impact skills. Lasts for 240 seconds. Disappears after use. This should be the dwarf puppet that Kager Stantine summoned during the battle. Strictly speaking, it was not a high-quality summon creature. However, as a summoning item, it had many uses. It could be given to Li Shi as a backup. From Lich Fisher's treasure chest, they received an unsealed secret letter. Unsealed secret letter, special item. This is a secret letter written by the master of the undead plague. It has his magical signature. You can pass this secret letter to the leader of the human faction in the Kane Plain and receive the corresponding reward. Since the secret letter was unsealed, it meant that it could be read. It did not affect the value of the letter. Bai Xiaowen quickly skimmed through the letter and said, "This secret letter is actually a piece of evidence." With it, the evidence of Black Rock City's Lord Carbal colluding with the Sin domain is conclusive. Although this thing can't increase our battle strength, but the meaning behind it is still extraordinary. Qiao Rui nodded and said, "Didn't you want to write a letter to Prince Nicholas? You can bring this secret letter to him. You should be able to gain Prince Nicholas' trust." The other two nodded in agreement. It's a pity that I can't stay in the Kane Plain for too long. I can't go directly to the central province. Bai Xiaowen sighed. If he missed the battle for the throne, he would miss out on many side quests. Finally, it was Ricardo's treasure chest. Li Shi was the one who drew the 3 lots. In the first draw, Li Shi received a sweeping skill book. This skill book was Ricardo's main combat skill. However, it was only a 2-star skill. As an AoE damage skill, the fact that it did not have an additional control effect was a major flaw. Of course, the short cooldown and high damage bonus were also a type of compensation. Although Ricardo was a physique-type boss, this sweep skill book was most suitable for violent warriors. None of the members of the White Phoenix squad met the conditions, so they put away the skill book for the time being. Then, Li Shi drew a second time and received a notification that he had drawn a special grade spirit energy crystal. Although it was not a gold tier equipment, at least it was worth it. My luck is a little bad today. The items I drew are all useless. Li Shi was still a little unsatisfied. He hesitated for a while before tapping the back of the last golden card. Whoosh, a golden light bloomed. On the front of the card, there was an image of a heavy shield. You have obtained a gold equipment, Iron Fortress. Iron Fortress, bound after pickup, rarity, hero, gold, equipment position, one-handed, prerequisite, basic strength 20, basic constitution 30, attributes, defense plus 18, additional skill, iron will, passive. Your resilience against all imbalanced statuses, including but not limited to knockback, etc., is increased by 66.7%. Activating Iron Will grant 40% physical damage reduction for 30 seconds. Cooldown time is 24 hours. Durability description: I am the fortress, I am the city wall, I am the mountain. Wow, it's out, it's out. Li Shi was excited when he saw the glow of the golden equipment. However, after seeing the attributes of the equipment, he could not help but twitch his mouth. It's a shield, and it's bound after pickup. Bai Xiaowen smiled and said, the attributes of this shield are very good. It's most suitable for an MT. Our team did not have a tank before, but it's different this time. Qiao Rui nodded slightly at Hansu. Congratulations. Li Shi also reacted. Yes, this thing is suitable for Hansu. Hansu's slightly tanned face flushed red. Don't decline. We have no use for this shield. You're the MT of our Elite League team. Who else should I give it to other than you? Bai Xiaowen waved his hand and said, I won't give you any psionic points for the other items from the treasure chest. In fact, Hansu did not contribute much to killing the boss. He mainly tanked the mobs. According to the conventional distribution of psionic points, Hansu would probably only get a few hundred to 1,000 psionic points. Compared to this golden shield, which could be sold for tens of thousands of psionic points, it was undoubtedly unequal. However, the golden shield was bound after pickup, not after equipping it. If he wanted to trade it, he would have to take out a golden beeswax worth 20,000 psionic points. This reduced its trading value. Bai Xiaowen did not lack psionic points, so there was no need for him to haggle over every penny. Hansu was also a teammate he thought highly of in the Elite League. It would be good to give him an opportunity to upgrade his equipment. After activating the skill Iron Will, the 30-second physical damage reduction effect was very strong. However, Bai Xiaowen was more interested in the passive effect of the shield, which was its resilience to unbalanced states. If there was one thing an MT was most afraid of, it was not the boss's high damage output. Instead, it was the fear of being knocked back or even sent flying by a boss with high strength and a large body. If that happened, the boss would rush into the crowd and slaughter the weak teammates with low defense and low HP. For an MT with a sense of responsibility, this was worse than death. With this shield, the risk of being knocked back could be greatly reduced. In the Elite League, Hansu could also turn into an iron pillar when facing an enemy with high strength and block the enemy's path of attack. It was needless to say how useful the shield was. The redness on Hansu's face dissipated. He did not argue and nodded in agreement, accepting the shield. Seeing that Hansu had also gained something, Bai Xiaowen was very happy. This time, he had called Han Su along, thinking that they would be able to go all out. Who knew that the Iron Thorn clan would be so weak that they would be defeated in just 2 days? The rest of the time was spent on recruiting talents and giving blood to White Stone City. Although these were necessary measures to increase the potential of the territory and were very important to Bai Xiaowen, to Han Su, they did not have much meaning. Now that Han Su had risen to level 6 and obtained a gold shield, as the leader, Bai Xiaowen also felt proud. It was not a waste to follow him. Han Su took out the 3 elite treasure chests that had been dropped during the Black Rock City manhunt and shared them with everyone. Bai Xiaowen wanted to decline. To be honest, they did not really need the loot from the elite treasure chests. However, Han Su insisted on distributing the loot. He felt that if it was not for Bai Xiaowen, he would not have had the opportunity to kill the elite treasure chests so easily. As a temporary member, he could not just take from the team and not give in. Qiao Rui signaled Bai Xiaowen to agree and shared the soul points from the 3 elite treasure chests. After the loot was distributed, Han Su proposed to return. I have no use here, so I'll go back and train. I've already applied to the school to graduate early. If you need me to form a team for the Elite League, just let me know. Bai Xiaowen smiled and said, of course, I won't stand on ceremony with you. Han Su nodded and turned into a white light, leaving the Cane Plain. Li Shi and Qiao Rui did not leave. Unlike Han Su, who was nervous, they were confident that they could keep up with Bai Xiaowen in the Elite League. The 2 of them were very curious about Fatty Butcher's transformation surgery and wanted to stay and see what Fatty Butcher looked like. After waiting for 2 hours, footsteps finally came from the stone stairs of the Underground Research Institute. Zombie Doctor puffed out his chest and walked out of the institute with his hands behind his back. How is it? Bai Xiaowen asked. Ha, boss. There's good news, and even better news. Which one do you want to hear first? Zombie Doctor said proudly. Bai Xiaowen's heart was greatly relieved. This guy put on such a fearless and annoying face, so the results of the surgery must be good. He waved his hand and said, spit it out. Zombie Doctor coughed. The good news is that the surgery was very successful. Butcher has woken up, and his vitals are normal. Silence. Zombie Doctor and Bai Xiaowen stare at each other. Silence. What's wrong? Bai Xiaowen was very confused. He looked Zombie Doctor up and down as if he was looking at a clown. What the hell was with this sudden pause? Ahem. Boss, at this time, shouldn't you ask, what's the better news? Zombie Doctor had a look that said, if you don't ask, how can I say it? Bai Xiaowen resisted the urge to beat this guy up. He said patiently, okay, tell me what the better news is. Ha ha ha, after Butcher's transplant, I spent a lot of effort and finally resolved the rejection. He's fused perfectly with the devouring stomach. He's become even stronger, boss. It's definitely beyond your expectations. Zombie Doctor said proudly. HM? Did he evolve into a boss? Bai Xiaowen was a bit surprised. Zombie Doctor shrunk his neck. That's not it. He muttered in a mosquito-like voice, in your dreams. Bai Xiaowen couldn't be bothered to argue with Zombie Doctor. He didn't expect Fatty to evolve into a boss in the first place. Where's Fatty? Let me see. Zombie Doctor coughed. He'll be out soon. Heavy footsteps sounded, and a large blue hand reached out of the research facility's cave. Then, another large hand reached out. Both hands pressed against the ground, and then Butcher's sparse head poked out of the horizon. He squeezed out of the cave with some effort. Bai Xiaowen opened Butcher's data panel. Butcher's attributes and level hadn't changed, and his template hadn't changed either. The 3 skills he already had, Slaughterhouse, Meat Hook, and Rot, hadn't changed much. The only difference was that there was an additional special skill, Devour. Devour, this monster's stomach secretes a powerful digestive fluid. When there's a lack of food, even mud and rocks are its food. After devouring a certain type of item, there will be a corresponding temporary enhancement, After the skill description, there were 3 rows of small words. Devour flesh, temporarily increases the upper limit of HP. The stronger the target was when he was alive, the more HP will increase. The maximum increase is 300 points. The effect will weaken after 24 hours. Devour minerals, temporarily increases armor or magic resistance according to the type of mineral. The rarer the mineral is, the higher the armor or magic resistance. The maximum increase is 30 points. The effect will weaken after 24 hours. Devour equipment, temporarily increases all attributes according to the quality of the equipment. The higher the quality of the equipment, the higher the increase in all attributes. The maximum increase is 20 points. The effect will weaken after 24 hours. When devouring equipment, Butcher would also temporarily obtain equipment's additional skills. The above 3 devour effects wouldn't stack. For example, if he devoured the enemy's flesh and blood, the upper limit of HP would be increased. If he went to eat dirt, he would gain armor or magic resistance, which would overwrite the temporary enhancement of the upper limit of HP. Alright. Looks like it's a pretty good buff skill. Bai Xiaowen stroked his chin and gave his evaluation. This Devour skill was special because it was flexible and could be strengthened according to the situation on the battlefield. Under normal circumstances, devouring the enemy's flesh and blood was a good choice. No one would complain about having a high upper limit of HP. In fact, the strongest option would be to devour equipment. If he devoured a high-quality equipment, all attributes would increase by 20 points, and his total attributes would increase by 80 points. The Butcher would become even stronger than the leader. He just didn't know what kind of equipment he would need to eat to increase all attributes by 20 points. Could it be dark gold? Bai Xiaowen felt a headache coming on. Even eating a piece of gold equipment would be a pain in the ass. No matter what, it was a good thing that Butcher had an additional skill and became stronger. Bai Xiaowen finally smiled at the zombie doctor and praised him a little. Zombie doctor was overjoyed and wanted to play a few jokes with Bai Xiaowen, but who knew that Bai Xiaowen would reveal his true colors as a capitalist in the next second and give zombie doctor the task of mass-producing the plague's nemesis. Boss, supervising the production of the factory will take up a lot of my precious research time. This is your loss. Zombie doctor said sternly and tried to slack off. This isn't a loss, it's an investment. Bai Xiaowen smiled. I need enough plague's nemesis medicine to be able to move the largest number of people from Black Rock City here. When the time comes, White Rock City will experience rapid development. Blacksmithing, potions, jewelry, runes. All industries will prosper and you'll have more funds to spend on research. Zombie doctor scratched his head, feeling that something was wrong. Bai Xiaowen patted him on the shoulder. The plague's nemesis formula can only be in your hands, so I don't trust anyone else to supervise the production of the factory. The attack on Black Rock City this time is actually for the formula. You have to be careful. Alright. As usual, Zombie Doctor was convinced. Bai Xiaowen was telling the truth. If it wasn't for the plague's nemesis formula, why would Black Rock City resort to such desperate measures and trick Cecilia into leaving the city and taking the opportunity to launch an attack? Compared to Black Rock City, White Stone City was truly destitute. Occupying it would only add another burden and would be of no value to them. Chapter 704. In the following days, the migration from Black Rock City to White Stone City was on the right track. Cecilia advertised in Black Rock City that White Stone City had a low tax burden and special treatment for the residents of White Stone City. This attracted more and more residents of Black Rock City. They left their homes where they had lived for generations and joined the refugees as they moved towards White Stone City. The resettlement work in White Stone City was also a problem because White Stone City could not accommodate so many people. Fortunately, White Stone City did not have to deal with so many houses at once. They only had to deal with the allocation of houses for the professional craftsmen who had passed the examination. As for the refugees, Whitestone City allocated a large area of empty land and urgently made tents and other living materials. They set up shanty towns for the refugees to live in. However, this was definitely not a long-term solution. The refugees moved mainly because they wanted to buy the rights to the plague's nemesis at a low price. If they did not give the refugees a good living environment, including living and working environment, they would definitely escape back to Black Rock City after they were cured of the plague of the dead virus that lurked in their bodies. Bai Xiaowen also had a countermeasure for this. The refugees bought the plague's nemesis medicine and each person was limited to 1 vial per day. In this way, the refugees would need at least 21 days to be completely cured. During this time, the management of Whitestone City would be free to settle them down. Bai Xiaowen came up with a development plan for Whitestone City. The specific content will not be described in detail. Here are a few key words: expansion of the city, reconstruction, development. The usable area in the city was not enough, so it had to be expanded. Bai Xiaowen planned to expand the total area of Whitestone City by 3 times. First, he would send the army to drive piles along the road, enclosing a large circle of land outside Whitestone City. As for the existing walls of Whitestone City, they would be used as the inner city. Reconstruction and expansion were all construction trades. They could attract a group of migrants to join the Whitestone City Construction Corps. There were many problems to consider, such as the allocation of construction resources, the layout of the streets and residences after reconstruction, and so on. Developing the land was imperative. There were so many migrants who needed to open their mouths to eat. This also involved a series of problems, such as farming, grain loans, land allocation. Bai Xiaowen felt that if he were placed in an ancient war strategy game, he would definitely be an awesome player with an internal affairs score of more than 95. Just his highly retentive memory and agile thinking ability allowed him to quickly find solutions to thousands of problems. He divided all the difficult tasks into small problems and distributed them, causing the internal affairs of Baishur City to run at high speed. Knight Tim became the chief steward of Whitestone City and was extremely busy every day. Not only him, but almost all the literate knights in Baishur City were ordered around by Bai Xiaowen. However, after 2 days of busy work, all the work began to get on track, and Baishur City entered a period of construction in full swing. Bai Xiaowen, as the architect of the blueprint and the person who made the plan, could take a breather and rest. What made Bai Xiaowen the happiest was the addition of a large number of senior professionals, which would allow Whitestone City's various industries to develop rapidly. Currently, the blacksmith shop, jewelry shop, inscription shop, and other special buildings had not been upgraded because they still needed to be expanded. However, the professionals were already there. It was because of these professionals that the corresponding buildings could be upgraded. For example, for the blacksmith shop to be upgraded to level 4, at least one senior blacksmith must be stationed there. Otherwise, no matter how much resources Bai Xiaowen had, he would not be able to build a level 4 blacksmith shop. The upgrade of these special buildings would bring more high-end goods to Bai Xiaowen's shop on Earth. The knife kills many people. Take the blacksmith shop as an example. Currently, a level 3 blacksmith shop could already produce blue-grade equipment. After reaching level 5, the blacksmith shop could produce gold-grade equipment. Although the consumption of production capacity was shocking, gold-grade equipment could not be compared to blue and white-grade equipment. This wave of attack on Black Rock City is really worth it. Bai Xiaowen was elated. Suddenly, someone came to report that Castellan Cecilia had already brought the last batch of professional blacksmiths and led 2 groups of refugees into the city. Bai Xiaowen stood up to welcome them. Cecilia handed the blacksmiths and refugees over to head butler Tim. Then, she met Bai Xiaowen at the entrance of the Lord's mansion. A bright smile appeared on her face. Some of the fatigue on her face disappeared. "We have almost emptied Black Rock City of its resources," Cecilia said. "Even if Prince Nicholas did not agree to hand Black Rock City over to you and wanted to take back the territory of Black Rock City, he would only end up with a destitute city. Now, most of the high-end shops in Black Rock City have closed down. The shops that are barely open have their levels dropped rapidly. They do not even have the ability to produce mid-grade items. This phenomenon has also accelerated the migration of the residents of Black Rock City. Everyone has a herd mentality. Actually, when the first batch of refugees and professional teams set off from Black Rock City, I could already see the outcome. Bai Xiaowen smiled. He did not feel the slightest bit of guilt about emptying Black Rock City of its resources. If he did not do anything about it, Black Rock City would be invaded by the undead plague sooner or later. Then, many people would die an unnatural death. Now that these residents had arrived at White Rock City, at least their lives would be guaranteed. They would not become the undead of the plague. Looking at Cecilia's beautiful face, which was slightly thin, Bai Xiaowen wanted to say something but stopped himself. He was reluctant to part with her. Dior, you are leaving? Cecilia sharply sensed something. Yes. I have almost reached the limit of my time in the northern lands. The next time I come here, it might be another year or so before I have enough time, Bai Xiaowen said. He could only stay for 1 day a month. However, if he only had 1 day, it would be meaningless to come to Cane Realm. He would not be able to do anything. Therefore, Bai Xiaowen had been saving up 5 or 6 days of time to come to Cane Realm. At least he could help develop the territory. Cecilia hugged Bai Xiaowen tightly. It was as if she was using all her strength to merge Bai Xiaowen into her body. Wait for me, Bai Xiaowen whispered softly into her ear. Take me with you. Cecilia buried her face in Bai Xiaowen's chest. Her voice was a little muffled. After saying this, she was almost completely drained of energy. She leaned weakly against Bai Xiaowen and murmured softly. For you, I can give up my dignity. For you, I can give up myself. For you, I can give up my world. Bai Xiaowen reached out and hugged Cecilia. Although he had thousands of words in his heart, he could not say a single word. Chapter 705. In the team channel, Bai Xiaowen called out to his 2 teammates and asked for their opinions, especially Li Shi's. If Li Shi did not agree, Bai Xiaowen would not sign the contract with Cecilia. Even if doing so would make Cecilia sad. Li Shi remained silent and did not speak. Qiao Rui said, Cecilia is a high-level leader. After she becomes your follower, the Spirit Realm's rules will increase the evaluation of our team's strength. If you kill the Spirit World leader, your points and rewards will decrease accordingly. Although he did not express his opinion, Qiao Rui clearly did not support Cecilia becoming Bai Xiaowen's follower. Followers were different from summoned creatures. They were independent individuals and did not enjoy the master's mental strength buff. However, they could wear equipment, learn skills, and even choose to explore the Spirit Realm independently. Therefore, the Spirit Realm's rules calculated the combat strength of followers and masters separately. Servants or followers who were unable to equip equipment would have their attributes increased to the point where they would be on par with or even surpass humanoid followers of the same level and template. For example, White Eagle One in Tutu. After Cecilia became Bai Xiaowen's follower, it was as if the White Phoenix team had gained a hero-class teammate out of nowhere. Not only would the difficulty of the missions in the spirit world increase correspondingly, but the boss that Cecilia participated in attacking would also have a corresponding decrease in combat rating. Bai Xiaowen said, I understand. If Cecilia joins us and Qiao Rui becomes a hero, our team will be treated as one of the 4 heroes by the Spirit Realm's rules. Our strength rating will increase greatly. However, the increase in our strength also means that we can explore more difficult quest lines and kill stronger leaders or even lords. In terms of profit, everyone's profit won't decrease. Moreover, because of the higher difficulty quests, it will increase the speed of gaining experience points. As a long-range physical DPS, Cecilia could also make up for the team's shortcomings. Just like Qiao Rui, the increase in the team's strength level was not as great as Qiao Rui's. Qiao Rui said, if the captain is confident that we can explore more difficult missions, I have no objections. It depends on Xiao Rui's opinion. In fact, Xiao Rui's silent objection was also for Li Shi's sake. Li Shi also clearly felt this. The atmosphere in the team channel was silent. Suddenly, Li Shi smiled and said in a cheerful tone, "That's pretty good. Our team is lacking a long-range shooter. It's not suitable to always rely on Xiaowen." After Xiaowen received the Winter Wand, he has to make up for the team's DPS. "I think Cecilia's joining us is good." In fact, the three members of the team all knew that the team would need to expand sooner or later. As the team gradually became high-level awakened, they would one day undergo the baptism of the plane's unification and be promoted to evolvers. In the battle to unify the plane at all costs, the stronger the team was, the more important it would be to the world. Battle ratings and rewards were secondary. Cecilia's addition as a follower would not take up a spot in the team. In the future, the team would have room for further expansion. Of course, this was a good thing. The reason why the atmosphere in the team was tense was mainly because Bai Xiaowen and Xiao Rui were worried about Li Shi's mood. After hearing Li Shi's attitude, Xiao Rui and Bai Xiaowen were very touched. After a moment of silence, Xiao Rui said with emotion, "Captain, treat Bai Xiaowen better in the future." This sentence was directly heard in Bai Xiaowen's mind through Xiao Rui's soul speaker ability. Bai Xiaowen felt a little guilty and nodded softly. It was not clear whether he was replying to Xiao Rui or Li Shi. After obtaining the agreement of his teammates, Bai Xiaowen finally took out the enhanced follower contract and prepared to sign the contract with Cecilia. Cecilia signed the contract willingly. There was no problem with this. Cecilia's level was one level higher than Bai Xiaowen's. In a situation where the gap was not large, the chances of the contract failing were actually very small. However, in order to be foolproof, Bai Xiaowen still raised his level to level 7. After returning from the Aaron bit wall, Bai Xiaowen's experience bar was close to level 7. After experiencing the siege of Baishur City, the rescue of Cold Spring Valley, and the attack of Black Rock City, Bai Xiaowen's experience bar was already full. He had been suppressing his experience and did not level up. He originally wanted to enter the spirit realm in the next exploration. After Bai Xiaowen chose to level up, he received a notification from the spirit realm. Your profession level has been promoted to level 7. You have received 2 points of strength, 2 points of dexterity, 2 points of constitution, and 5 points of spirit. Your profession skill mind link has received a chance to be strengthened. Do you want to draw it? Bai Xiaowen chose to draw it. Checking your level 4 to level 6 combat experience acquisition. Checking completed. After that was a series of combat experience acquisition methods and the ratio. As early as when he was promoted to level 4, this situation had occurred. Bai Xiaowen roughly glanced at it. Compared to when he had leveled up to level 4, the quality of the combat experience he gained this time was obviously much better. A large number of boss kills, heroic, elite quests, and elite scavenger quests accounted for a large portion of the combat experience he gained. Based on your evaluation, the roulette wheel has been generated. Please complete the draw within 1 minute. In front of Bai Xiaowen, the roulette wheel appeared again. It was still 4 different colored areas, representing normal, excellent, excellent, and perfect. Unlike the previous roulette wheel, this time the black area representing perfect occupied more than 30% of the area, and the area representing excellent occupied more than 50% of the area. Next, the excellent area occupied more than 10%. As for the normal white area, there was only a small area, about 5%. In this case, if he still drew the normal enhancement, then he would really be the great chieftain of the unlucky tribes. Bai Xiaowen chose to draw. The needle spun, then slowly slowed down, and finally stopped. Yeah! Li Shi and Xiao Rui cheered at the same time. The needle stopped at the perfect area. Spiritual Realm Rule Notification: you have drawn the level 7 class skill enhancement effect. Your class skill mental link has obtained the perfect special effect, Symbiosis. Symbiosis. You can designate a summon creature to temporarily obtain 50% of the target's attribute, or allow the summon creature to obtain 50% of your attribute. Lasts for 240 seconds. The maximum number of charges for this special effect is 3, and each charge takes 24 hours. The spirit attribute you obtain through this method will not be included in the summoner's spirit bonus. This symbiosis special effect is quite impressive. Bai Xiaowen smacked his lips and said. Bai Xiaowen's current summon creatures included strength, agility, physique, and spirit. This meant that he could choose them very flexibly. For example, if Bai Xiaowen needed a strength boost to fight against an enemy, he could designate a skeleton warrior and obtain 50% of the enemy's strength attribute. This was 22 points of strength for free. Bai Xiaowen's strength would instantly break through the 50 points mark, which was comparable to a strength specialization. For example, if Bai Xiaowen needed a physique boost to take damage, he could designate a butcher and obtain 50% of the opponent's physique attribute. This was 24 points of physique for free, and he could transform into a 60 points of physique tank. If he wanted agility, he could look for the Wrath Claw. If he wanted spirit, he could look for Delifa. In short, there were many wonderful uses. Moreover, the 240 seconds duration was enough to support a boss battle. In addition, it was a form of charging, so he could accumulate and use this special effect multiple times in a row. It was a perfect, flawless enhancement. This was also worthy of the perfect grade of the enhancement effect. In addition, after Bai Xiaowen obtained 5 points of spirit, his spirit attribute had reached 74 points. All the summon creatures' attributes had been upgraded from +6 to +7, and they had become even more powerful. Bai Xiaowen's basic spirit had finally reached the standard, and he could equip the Cold Winter Wand. This wand, which he had obtained from the great wizard Kevin, was quite powerful and could greatly make up for the lack of magic output in the team. In addition, Bai Xiaowen also received a further notification from the Spiritual Realm's rules. Congratulations, you have reached level 7 and become an advanced awakened. In the future exploration of the spiritual realm, you will have the opportunity to encounter a grand unification plot. After completing the grand unification plot, you will be qualified to be promoted to an evolved. This information is confidential, and its secret level is 0. If it is mentioned to a low-level awakened, a certain amount of psionic points will be deducted as a punishment. Bai Xiaowen narrowed his eyes and keenly caught the gap in the language of the spiritual realm's rules. You mean, I can also encounter a grand unification plot before reaching level 10? When the time comes, I can directly become an evolved. Yes. The spiritual realm's rules gave an affirmative answer. If I complete the grand unification plot at level 7 and become an evolved, then what should I do if I lack basic attributes from level 7 to level 10? Bai Xiaowen reacted quickly and asked directly. The basic attributes that you lack will be made up in one go. Moreover, the awakened ones who evolved before reaching level 10 would receive additional rewards. This information is confidential, and its secret level is 1. If it is mentioned to a mid-level or low-level awakened, you will be punished by level 1. After Bai Xiaowen became an advanced awakened, the spiritual realm's rules seemed to treat him differently. The answers were quite detailed. Bai Xiaowen nodded. I understand. Just now, you said that after completing the grand unification plot, I will be qualified to be promoted to an evolved, but not directly promoted to an evolved? Could it be that after completing the grand unification plot, I can also choose not to be promoted to an evolved? If I choose this, what will happen? The spiritual realm's rules prompted, after the grand unification plot is completed, there will be a notification to be promoted to an evolved. If you choose yes, you will be promoted to an evolved. If you choose no, you will continue to adventure in the awakened level planar worlds as an awakened. Note, the above rules only apply to awakened who have not reached level 10. After a level 10 awakened completes the grand unification plot, they must choose to be promoted to an evolved. Otherwise, they will be rejected by the psionic particles and will never be able to enter the spiritual realm again. Bai Xiaowen nodded. such a rule setting was quite reasonable. Of course, the awakened rose from level 7 to level 10 not only to increase their basic attributes, but also to explore the awakened world during the process of leveling up. They would get better equipment and obtain better skills or items. This was also an increase in strength. Therefore, if an awakened who had not reached level 10 completed the grand unification plot, they had the right to choose no and continue to grow. And if they chose yes and became an evolved, they would get additional rewards. Awakened who had reached level 10 had to choose to be promoted. Otherwise, their path of promotion would be cut off forever. They would not be able to enter the spiritual realm again, so of course, they would not be able to become an evolved. Such rules, to a certain extent, limited the behavior of top-level awakened to deliberately stay in low-level planes to dominate and earn points wantonly. Of course, the rules were dead, and people were alive. No matter how good the rules were, they could not restrict the behavior of awakened who deliberately stayed. For example, those awakened who had reached level 10 could completely avoid the grand unification plot. For example, those awakened who had been famous for a long time, such as Roaring Heavenly Lord, were such people. In fact, a top-level awakened like Skylord Raging Roar had been avoiding the grand unification storyline and not advancing to an evolver. Perhaps it was because he wanted to accumulate strength, increase his combat strength, and hone his strength in all aspects to a perfect level. Then, he would shine in the grand unification dimension and strive for a heroic or even higher evolver profession template. In order to verify his thoughts, Bai Xiaowen also inquired the spiritual realm's rules about what templates there were for evolved, how to obtain a high-grade evolved template, and so on. However, the spiritual realm's rules were tight-lipped about Bai Xiaowen's information about evolved and did not respond at all. Bai Xiaowen speculated that the evolved template should be related to the performance in the grand unification plot. The greater the awakened's contribution to the grand unification plot, the higher the possibility of obtaining a high-grade template. Although the spiritual realm's rules did not allow him to inquire about this information, after returning to Earth, it should not be difficult for a high-level awakened to collect it. Bai Xiaowen then signed a follower's contract with Cecilia. There was no need to worry about a 100% success rate. Cecilia solemnly wrote her name on the contract with her own blood. The contract came into effect. Cecilia made a sound of surprise. There was a more direct spiritual connection between her and Bai Xiaowen. This was the spiritual communication ability between a master and a follower. After signing the follower's contract, Bai Xiaowen also learned some information about followers through his inquiries. As a native of the Kane dimension, Cecilia could choose to stay in the Kane dimension. Bai Xiaowen could forcibly summon Cecilia at any time through the follower's contract. As a follower, Cecilia had no right to resist the conscription. After the conscription, Cecilia could also return to Kane through Bai Xiaowen's White Stone City permanent fief order as a medium. Since she was a native of Kane, staying in the Kane dimension did not consume the days accumulated by the permanent fief order. You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.